Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Real Combat Media MMA Radio. I am your host. My name is Isaac Lanford. I am coming to you from the Circle City, Indianapolis, Indiana. My regular co-host, David Hollywood Hewlett, will not be here this evening. He picked up what he referred to as a wicked Asian stomach virus. I will give him the benefit of the doubt and say it did not come from the brothels in Thailand. But I do have in his place my good friend, comedian from Indianapolis, DJ Dangler. DJ, how are you this evening?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for carrying a little extra load than usual here without David. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the past week of fights, Bellator, UFC. We're going to talk about the Palhares cut. We got some great interviews. We got Quinn Mulhern from the UFC. We got XFC bantamweight prospect Brian the Wall Hall out of Memphis. We're going to do the previews, upcoming cards. We're going to have a nice little conversation. I had a nice conversation earlier today, DJ. I found out that February, March, my wife and I will be having another daughter.
Congratulations. That's two, right? That's your second little girl?
Yes. Well, there was another, but we don't talk about her. She's in the basement eating the fish head.
Yeah, this is your second official baby girl.
Exactly. The second official, ones we count. You, the audience, can be a part of our conversation here if you wish. You can find us at Real Combat Media on Twitter. You can find us Real Combat Media on Facebook. Or you can even call in here at 347-324-5998. We did have some callers last week that believed themselves to be hilarious. It didn't turn out so. So if you're calling with the prank, it needs to at least be creative or you're not going to get past the first 6 seconds. DJ, let's dive into
I would almost love to fall victim to a terrific prank.
Well, a terrific prank is fine. Those are the type that you're like, oh, egg on my face. I look like a fool. Good job. Yeah. But it's different when you just, call and then just, cuss at the person who answers the phone.
Yeah. Well, maybe the genius is in their subtlety.
Yeah, maybe so. Simplicity, a return to simplicity here. It's a throwback prank.
Yeah.
I want to start right here. I want to talk about Friday's Bellator 103, Rickles versus Ambrose, which is the name of the event, even though their fight was second on the broadcast, which I thought was really weird. The obvious main event was really Patricio Pitbull against Fabricio Guerrero, which was a good fight, not an easy walkthrough for Pitbull. He got the unanimous decision, moves on in the featherweight tournament to the final. But what I like to see there is that we know that Patricio Pitbull is a freak. He's great. But we also know, after watching him for this many years now, that it's not just the first round that this kid's dangerous. He can fight the 15 minutes. He can fight the 25, I'm sure, if he needs to. This Pitbull is a beast. He really is.
He is a tenacious dude. It's a perfectly fitting nickname. I love it when nicknames make sense. It makes me. It's such a stupid thing to root for in a fighter, but it is. I like it. I'm like, that's fitting.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. I remember the first time I saw Carlos Condit fight, and he was, walking out to the cage, and they referred to him as the natural-born killer, that I rolled my eyes. I'm like, this dude, that's the natural-born killer. And the funny thing is I said he looks like a politician's son, which he is, but it does not – that's a fitting name. Carlos Condit's a monster, man. He really turns it on. He lives up to his nickname as well. And you're right, it is good when that happens because – any self-given nickname, I think, is a problem. So it's how many guys call themselves the Pitbull? Andre Arlovsky is a pit bull, and other than the fact that he's very hairy, I don't see how it applies.
What was the first? Was it a Pitbull Feroci in like the UFC 3 or 4?
Oh yeah, Ferozo.
Yeah.
Hey,
the
Scott
giant
Ferozo,
egg-shaped man.
Yes, he beat Tank Abbott. Hey,
yeah,
that's something
tough
that
dude.
a lot of people
Tough,
did. But
hairy, fat dude.
Anyway, back to the Bellator. So we see Patricio Pitbull go through. We also see Justin Wilcox move in. Also a tough fight for him against Joe Chamilongo. I mean, both guys, they've had to fight their way into this tournament, so it'll be nice to see the final between them and see who's going to get the shot at the winner of Daniel Strauss and Pat Curran. David Rickles also picked up a pretty impressive win against J.J. Ambrose. I'll tell you what, I wish David was here because I know that Ambrose will train at Phuket's top team along with David Hewlett. And he was talking really good about Ambrose, but Ambrose looked like, as many people do, a totally different weight class than David Rickles. David Rickles is enormous in this weight class. I mean, he is a beast. And that size, he put it on Ambrose, held his own. I mean, he hung in there a long time, and eventually the caveman just pounded his way. Good job for David Rickles to get back in the win column.
What a terrific finish. A stoppage by body shots.
Yeah, monster body shots.
That is that one, right? Yeah, like the head triangle, and he was clubbing at his. What? Speaking of great nicknames, I hate it, but a caveman pounding a guy out with body shots is pretty fitting too.
Yeah, and that was a very odd
kind of
position.
bam bringing it down.
Sure. And what's weird, like I wondered in that position, it was hard to really see exactly how his legs were locked up with that triangle, but I'm wondering if that was just a size difference thing where if they were closer in size, Ambrose might have been able to lift and pull and get out of that, but was just trapped underneath that huge man. But he was beating his rib cage. Like that was nasty. That was a merciful stop by the referee for sure.
Yeah.
And a just
stop. Yeah, great stop. And like kind of a hard stop to make because you know the guy is not going to tap in that situation, not that far into the fight.
Right.
But yeah, there's nothing he could do. All that was going to happen, the only thing that was going to happen by not stopping that fight was just ruining his insides.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. I want to because we got to talk about the Shields Maia fight card as well that was on Wednesday night. But before I get to that, I want to just throw in really quick. I watched. I don't imagine you probably watched the Legacy Fighting Championship on Access TV this week, and I think it was the Friday night broadcast.
No, I did. I missed it.
Okay, pretty good. I mean, they typically pretty solid cards from Legacy. The thing I wanted to point out is I'm at a loss for the names right now, but there were two guys. I can't remember. I don't know. It was a white guy and a black guy fighting. I think it was the only match that looked that way. So if you fast forward, you'll see it. But at one point, one guy's got the other clinched up against the cage, and the guy on the defense is pulling the tripod, like to avoid the knees to the head. He's got just his hand sitting on the ground, And one thing I did like, yeah, exactly. And one thing I liked about this was both Pat Miletich and I believe the referee said we can bypass the rule if you're doing it only to avoid getting kneed in the head, which is cool. That should be that way because that is a weird move. But what the guy did on the offense is he stomped his hand.
Terrific. Good move. Like
the Marco Huas foot stomp against Gage. He did it to the guy's hand. He stomped his hand once, right on the fingers, and another time he kicked his hand off the mat.
Yeah.
And I've never seen that before, and I thought that was such a neat thing.
Yeah, I'm for it. I wonder if that's something fighters train for, it just makes sense at the moment. Either way, I'm for it.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a broken hand really quick, too, that's it could damage somebody, so I could see, it not being a favorable thing to do. But if you are just doing the tripod to avoid the knee to the head, then, it's not any more dirty than that, so that's just fine. The other thing from Legacy that I wanted to talk about was Holly Holm, the former 14-time boxing champion. She's fighting in MMA now, and she's got a good record going. I think she made it to 5-0 from that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm checking it right now just to see if I'm correct on that. Yeah, she's 5-0, all by knockout. She is the scariest female fighter I've ever seen. You have to check out her fights. Like, she is intense. She ended this fight with a flurry of knees and punches and kicks that was just devastating. I don't know about her ground game, and I don't know if they've really given her someone to test her there yet. But she says that she started kickboxing before she ever even tried professional boxing, and it shows. Like, this chick, like Ronda Rousey's intense. Cyborg is a pretty intense chick, but Holly Holm is just dangerous. Like, she intimidates me watching her on television. I'm dead serious. Like, she is a beast. So I would say if you haven't seen her fighting, check it out. She is a badass.
I could be mistaken on this, but weren't they pushing her fight during the Bellator? I think I remember seeing commercial, or maybe it was just Inside MMA.
It was probably, if you watched Inside MMA this week, I guarantee they were pushing it because it aired right afterwards.
Yeah, I'm sure that's it. Yeah, no, she is. She's they've said it before, and it sounds awful. It always sounds like you're insulting a woman specifically, but they keep saying they say like she looks like a thoroughbred champing at the gate, right, or something like that.
Yeah.
But she is, like, she's big and muscled, and it's hard to say horsey without it sounding like an insult, but she is. She doesn't look completely human. She's a huge, thickly muscled woman.
She is. She, honestly, when I was watching her, I was thinking about those Williams sisters, the tennis players, where it's that, like, thoroughbred, just, like, beast athletes, like, physically imposing women for sure. Yeah. But I definitely wanted to give a shout to that legacy card. And I guess I have not watched yet. It's on my DVR, but I don't even know if this is worth mentioning. I'm going to throw it out there that the controversial Fallon Fox, the transgender fighter, was stopped for the first time. So maybe we won't have to be hearing her name so much until she fights higher level competition and is deserving of us talking about her for other reasons than controversy. But
terrific.
We are going to move into some more controversy as we get into the card to talk about the UFC Fight Night Maia versus Shields that has just aired Wednesday night on FX. I'm sorry, that's no longer FX, on Fox Sports 1. And we saw some good fights on television. The whole card was on television. I'm going to run up these results real quick, and then we'll start with the main event and work our way down as time permits here. We see Alan Patrick defeat Garrett Whiteley, which I didn't realize Garrett Whiteley was from Indiana. He got roughed up pretty good by Alan. I think it's Patrick, actually, Alan Patrick. Chris Carriazo had a great 2-round fight against Iliard Santos. Jan Cabral took out David Mitchell by decision. Igor Araro took out, my ink is actually faded here, not only am I terrible at pronouncing the Brazilian's names, Ildema Alcantara. Rafael Asunciao, in an upset, took out TJ Dillashaw by split decision for fight of the night. Rousimar Palhares got the heel hook on Mike Pierce 33 seconds into the fight. Would have had submission of the night. Instead, he loses his job. We'll talk about that in a minute. Fabio Maldonado took out Joey Beltran, split decision, and a total letdown of a fight, in my opinion. I expected a brawl from these two. A very overweight and lethargic-looking Thiago Silva took out a just as terrible-looking Matt Hamill, although not physically. Matt Hamill was only in his performance in a unanimous decision. The stun gun, Dong Hyun Kim, knocks out Eric Silva in the second round for knockout of the night, which was a good one. That was a good fight. And Jake Shields, I think, upset. I'm not sure what the betting odds were, but he took out Demian Maia by split decision in the main event. Let's start with the main event. What was your thoughts about Jake Shields, Demian Maia?
I think, it was definitely an upset. Demian Maia came in as one of the top 5 in the world, and I think rightfully so. We've talked about this fight. I mean, you and I have been fight fans for years and known each other forever. We've talked about this fight being like a theoretical worst fight imaginable. And
right.
It wasn't that. It definitely wasn't that. I enjoyed the fight.
Yeah, it was. It was a good fight.
Good ground fighting. I will say I think there were a couple of questionable stand-ups in the fight. I think they stood him up when Demian Maia was on bottom or was on top and doing stuff, and once when Demian Maia was on bottom and doing stuff. I don't think there was anything suspicious, but it's hard to tell with jiu-jitsu guys. I did love seeing American jiu-jitsu fight Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I don't know if it would win in the streets, but I think if you put it in a cage, American Jiu-Jitsu wins because it's got that wrestling aspect that's always on top.
Yeah, and I feel like I haven't really like paid attention to the internet. I don't know if there was controversy about this decision or if people all were okay with it or whatever. From what I saw, and I'm going to admit something here that I feel guilty about. I actually watched some of this fight in fast forward, like one time faster, because I was watching it at like it was late at night when I was watching it. I had come home after a show, and it was...
You could do that with a Jake Shields fight, and 9 times out of 10, miss nothing.
Yeah, and when it's only one time as fast, I can still see what's going on. If I see a transition, I back it up and I watch what just happened, and then I kind of play it that way. So maybe there's some nuances that I did miss in this fight, but it appeared to me that Jake Shields was on top more when they were on the ground, and that he was more active with pitter-patter punches in all positions than Demian Maia would get the takedowns, and then he'd kind of just be there for a minute. Yeah, and that's the way it appeared to me. That's the only way that I could say one guy won or one guy lost, because I think you said when I asked you about it right after the fight, like, that's a draw fight. I mean, that's the type of fight where it's like nobody, like, really beat the other guy.
Yep. I definitely feel like it's a draw. I feel like when it comes right down to it, I feel like every split decision should almost be ruled a draw. I don't think a draw hurts a guy's record. I don't feel like either guy should be able to walk away from that fight with more than the other. And that being said, it was a really good fight, and I'm glad that fight happened. I don't feel like either one should be punished for the effort they put in.
Yeah, I agree. It is one of those, like, it's the type of loss that doesn't hurt you as bad in the promotion's eyes. And, like, Jake Shields, you know, like, I'm surprised after he lost to George St. Pierre coming in and he had some shaky stuff. You know, he got knocked out by Jake Ellenberger. He had the failed drug test. I think it was, the Ed Herman fight when he went back to 185. Like, I kind of thought that Jake Shields' ship had sailed. And he's starting to put together a run again, and he looks like he, you know, may eventually at least be in the talk of the time. I think beating Demian Maia, he's definitely got to have a really high echelon fight for his next. I don't know who that is necessarily. A rematch between him and Carlos Condit, maybe, if Carlos Condit beats Matt Brown, which I think he probably will. Like, that would be an interesting fight. It's been a long time since they fought.
Yeah, that'd be a good fight. I'd be down with that.
Excuse me. A little cough going on there. Stun Gun knocking out Eric Silva.
What a shocker. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, you know, I have to say, as much as this is one of those, like, I'm going to, like, contradict myself in what I say, so let me explain here. I really enjoyed what happened in this fight, in the, like, 8 minutes or whatever of this fight actually happening. I enjoyed watching it. But I did not like this fight overall. I didn't like it for either fighter, I guess, is what I'm getting at, because Eric Silva, it was shown that the kid's really explosive, he's really athletic, he's talented, but Stun Gun was slowing him down. He was pressuring him, holding him, and just making it hard for him to get anything off. He was smothering him, he was shutting him down, and when Silva isn't coming at you, he's not so dangerous. He's not so much to worry about, is what I'm starting to see now. And that disappointed me a little bit, because I think that this kid has a lot of potential, and I was kind of, I guess, hoping. I like the young prospects, and I'm always hoping that we're going to get those John Jones-type characters who just come in and start blowing through everyone. I mean, you get to have a nice, like, Mike Tyson story, you know, and where you just a young kid destroyer. But then from the other side is that Stun Gun got the knockout, but I'm not going to call it a lucky shot, because it's not like they were both just standing swinging. He did, like, move off to the side and throw a shot, but he's not going to recreate that. Like, he caught the kid, he dropped him, he knocked him out, but it was like, that wasn't what even the game plan, it didn't feel like that. He threw that punch, it connected, the guy went down. But maybe I'm talking out of my ass. Isn't that what every punch is? So whatever. That knockout doesn't mean to me that you need to start worrying about Dong Young Kim's stand-up in a fight from now on.
I would say that's definitely accurate, but I do think it's just indicative of the change in the sport, where even guys who live on their backs can still knock you out. I mean, everybody here is training absolutely top caliber.
Sure.
You know, nothing real exciting. but love the surprise of it. Absolutely love the shock of it. I also just have to say, I really hated watching Kim when he came in, but the more and more I see him fight, and the more that I see him stick with that hand control on the ground, when he's holding people down on the ground by their wrists and ankles, it's such a weird wrestling style. It's not like anything I've ever seen before. He looks like an octopus or a squid wrapped folks up. I think it's just that weird long frame.
Yeah, he does have an interesting build. Like he doesn't. You always, when guys like that, they never appear like they generate a lot of power. But when he's a judo guy, so it's like he's got serious power in his hips and everything.
Yeah,
he just
he's
looks
throwing
more
off that core.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, he's got a solid record. I mean, Stun Gun, he hasn't faltered many times in the UFC. The Carlos Condit fight, like, kind of sticks out because it was a pretty dramatic, devastating finish very quickly. But otherwise, this guy's been rattling them off, like, I don't want to see him begging to fight George St. Pierre again like he did a couple of years ago, but he's working his way. He's a good fighter. I don't know who is necessarily the most appropriate fight for him right now. I don't want to see him jump up into like the top 5 guys, but definitely try to get him somebody in that top 10 range.
Would you want to give him another? Would you want to give him another slow, boring wrestling match with Jake Shields?
Yeah, you know what, man? It appears that if you can challenge Jake Shields on the ground, you get some pretty exciting fights.
It might be fun. I would watch those two roll around all weird.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be interested to see that. I think that I was surprised, and to go back to Shields, I guess I assumed because of what Demian Maia did to John Fitch that he wouldn't have a problem getting Jake Shields to the ground. And that turned out not to be the case.
I think Jake Shields is just way better than I want him to be.
Yeah.
I
really
think
that.
it is. Yeah. I realized that after that fight, I sat there and like in a begrudging way, because after the Jake Shields fight, I was sitting there and I was like, I kind of felt like Demian Maia won, but when I tried to figure it out round by round, I was like, no, Jake Shields won. He definitely won. And I think that guy, he's going to linger around in the middle of the welterweight division, like 4 to 7, and just ruin prospects' days for the next 2 or 3 years.
And you might be right. And, we're talking about Stun Gun. He and Stun Gun might be an appropriate fight, the two of them. It'd be interesting to see, but if Stun Gun can't get Jake Shields to the ground, does he have a chance? Because one thing I will say for Jake Shields is that I was insulting a stand-up in the show going into that fight, and he was throwing some good kicks, and, like, his shoulders and neck are very stiff, but what he's doing seems to be effective.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a fine fighter. Love to see him stringing this win together. I like him more than I ever have, and that's not to say I like him a bunch.
Sure. Speaking of, who I do like is Thiago Silva, although this guy, his career has been a mess lately.
Yeah.
DQs for drug use, and he missed weight. He looked fat in this fight. He looked fat. I don't know if the word's come out yet about what was going on, because he missed weight and he was obviously not in great shape. And so I don't know if there was like a serious injury going on, or did you hear anything? Am I just missing out on what the word was, or has it not been released?
I've heard nothing yet, but whenever I hear about, and we'll definitely have to talk to our guest Quinn Mulhern here later. Whenever I see guys not making weight, I always just assume something's wrong, that they've gotten sick, or that they have a minor nagging injury they're not admitting to or coming out with, Because these guys are professional fighters. This is their livelihood. I have to think if 1 million high school wrestlers can do it every winter, that these pro fighters are going to be capable of doing it on command.
Right, and maybe, because he's had problems with the steroids and things, like maybe he's been injury prone in his camps, and the steroids are what have been getting him through, and that he didn't do it this time, and he's just, because I insult him, I call him fat when he was not as fat as me. You know what I mean?
No.
I am fatter than
a physical specimen.
Yeah, exactly. But he didn't look good. And on the other side of the cage, though, Matt Hamill looked to be in phenomenal shape and was just gassed out by the third round. Thiago Silva.
I thought Matt Hamill came in looking like your tough uncle. I thought Matt Hamill looked. I thought he looked old man tough, but no, he didn't look primed or he didn't look like he had any of the fast twitch muscle reflexes that he used to have. When he came to the ring, he used to look like a big pumping steam engine, and here he just kind of looked like he took his shirt off at the beach. I thought he looked real lackadaisical, and I think it showed up in his fight. I thought it was a lazy fight.
It was, because Thiago Silva, he didn't have the juice that he needed, but he was running his tank bone dry and still trying. He was fighting. And Matt Hamill was just circling around getting punched and kicked until the bell rang. He was, until the referee touched him, I should say, in Matt Hamill's case.
Yeah.
But he was not, I don't know what happened. Matt Hamill had the retirement and came back, had a couple of fights. It looks like maybe I never want to be the guy who, says when a fighter really needs to hang it up, other than someone like Crow Cop, when they just keep getting knocked out. But, Matt Hamill just doesn't look like his drive. A guy who's as driven as Matt Hamill to be as lackadaisical as he looked in that fight, something's not right, something's wrong, and he probably should stop doing it.
That was my takeaway from it, too. Again, you don't want to tell somebody that they can't do something they love and something that they've done their whole life. But
sure,
yeah, he didn't look like a professional fighter in that fight, especially going up against a guy who also didn't look like a professional fighter in that fight, because he didn't make weight and he wasn't prepared properly. Regardless of the extenuating circumstances, he didn't prepare properly. That wasn't a professional fighter.
Right, and it makes me wonder with Thiago Silva is this guy one misstep away from getting fired. If the next fight he loses without a super impressive win, are they going to shit can him? Because he's, so many issues in the past couple of years with him.
I certainly wouldn't be surprised. A guy like that with such impressive highlight wins, and let's face it, such an awesome look. Doesn't he look like every bad guy in every action movie you've ever seen?
He does. He does. He's an intense-looking dude. He's
intense. He's got the big neck tattoo. He's got that weird. Where is he from? I don't know, but it's not from here. He doesn't look like he belongs anywhere. Yeah, he looks like he should always be playing Dracula, because he looks like he's from a made-up place.
And Silva is one of those dudes, not all fighters look like if I saw John Jones, John Jones is a big dude, but, he doesn't look like that he would really kick your ass. Thiago Silva, no matter what setting you see that guy in, he looks like he's ready to kick everyone's ass.
Yeah, you're like, what is that guy? The nicest thing, if you just showed somebody a picture, the nicest thing they would say would be I don't know, maybe gangster? I don't know.
If you saw
he could maybe be a nice gangster.
If you saw a picture of Thiago Silva holding a newborn baby and smiling, your reaction would be
oh my God,
will somebody feeding that baby?
Yeah. Why are you feeding him babies?
I'm going to throw the commercial real quick.
Pass the drug screen.
Maybe. Yeah. They didn't even test it. They just assumed. I'm going to throw us a commercial here. We're going to come back and talk about the rest of the Fight Night card on the other side. Right. We'll be back in a minute 30.
This is Real Combat Media Radio. Check us out at realcombatmedia.com. While you're there, check out the Feed the Poor link on the bottom of every article, and you can send a donation if you're interested. That is, once again, on the bottom of every article as well as on the top of the website. If you are an MMA, boxing, or fitness business and interested in sponsoring our website or radio podcast, send us an email. Advertising at realcombatmedia.com. Once again, that is advertising at realcombatmedia.com. Make sure to check out the Real Combat Media MMA and boxing store at the top of the menu at realcombatmedia.com. We carry a collection of products. We have the Cardio Mask, which is excellent for all fighters, endurance athletes, and serious fitness enthusiasts. Once you are in the Real Combat Media store, click on the banner on that page. We also carry Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain is a great and natural product which activates your brain's neurotransmitters and helps you think more clearly, which improves brain function. You can also purchase the world's healthiest plant protein, which comes from hemp. There are many other products online on the online store, and click on the On It banner at the Real Combat Media store and you can purchase Alpha Brain and other health products. Use the discount code Real Combat Media and you will receive 10% off at the checkout store on the On It, that is ONNIT, on the banner at Real Combat Media store. Buckle up, here we go. Let's get this show started.
All right, welcome back, Real Combat Media MMA Radio. Isaac Lampert, DJ Dangler here with you. We're about 15 minutes out from talking to Quinn Mulhern. Right now we are working our way down, talking about this past UFC Fight Night card, Maia Shields. If you want to join the conversation, call us at 347-324-5998. You can hit us on Twitter at Real Combat Media, also on Facebook, Real Combat Media. All right, moving down the card, we need to talk about, I had to have been the worst fight on the card, Fabio Maldonado against Joey Beltran. Let me say, when I saw this fight on paper last week, I was amped up. Not because I don't think either one of these guys significantly matter when you talk about title hunts or whatever, but that's not what the sport's always about. A good fight, especially an exciting fight. I thought this was going to be Tank Abbott versus Cabbage. I thought this was going to be one of those two guys planting their feet and just going to town on each other. Wait, does that sound really vulgar, what I just said? Two guys punching each other in the face, being men. That's what I meant.
Yeah, manly stuff.
It was not. It was Joey Beltran's camp deciding, and I'm not saying it was a wrong game plan, that, hey, Fabio Maldonado can take a shitload of damage, and he's got professional boxing experience. We can out-wrestle this guy. It just turned out he couldn't really out-wrestle him. He could grab him a lot and nullify his punching for a while. But it turned into, I thought the fight was terrible. Am I being too hard on this fight, or was it a terrible fight?
It definitely wasn't a good fight, and it was a really sloppy fight. I think it's also, I think it's a weird case of, I think Maldonado fought better because he was in Brazil.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a thing, you can't take that out of it. Does that sound ridiculous, or?
No.
I think Beltran underestimated the heart of Maldonado. I think that's what it looked like. And I'll admit that I did too.
I'll tell you this. I didn't underestimate his heart because I watched that beating that Teixeira put on him, and he was still trying to go. I thought that, I just assumed these two guys were going to hit each other a lot, and that Joey Beltran, I have seen Joey Beltran absorb more damage than I've seen Maldonado absorb without being stopped. So that was my math. That's how I thought this was going to go. It wasn't even each guy's skill set, because I really did think this was going to be Rock'em Sock'em Robots. And so maybe my expectation for that, it wasn't what I expected, and that's why I was so disappointed. But it was just a lot of clinching, a lot of nothing happening, where when it was over, neither guy seemed like he felt like he won the fight.
Mm-mm. No, I don't feel I feel like Joey Beltran should have felt like he won the fight because he didn't have that stupid haircut.
He does have, it's kind of like video game hair.
Maldonado his haircut's so bad, it always looks like he's losing the fight because it makes him look like so dumb and winded and exhausted. And you're like, oh my God, he looks like shit. He has to be losing. Look at me. He doesn't know what's going on. His eyes are all crossed. He's not seeing. Nope, just a stupid haircut.
Yeah, and I will say,
I was impressed by. What do you do with Maldonado, though? What do you do with a guy that I think gets destroyed by the upper tier 205s? I think. I don't know. You might think he can take a lot of damage, but I don't think anybody expects him to put down a Machida.
No. He's not. I don't see Maldonado, getting fights with top 10 guys. let alone beating any of them. I think that he's like lucky to be in the top 15, and he's going to be a Brazil guy. That's what he's going to be. Like I talked about it before, and I think it was the last time you were on the show about how this Brazil card, I recognize more guys than usual. Like these Brazil cards here lately, it's almost like a completely different league. I know almost no one who's appearing on them. And that's fine. I'm don't mind. I don't like it hurts my nerditude a little bit that I don't know who they are, but it's like watching something fresh. I get introduced to new things. I'm fine with all that. But I think that's where Maldonado goes. He's a guy, maybe not this fight, but that you can count on to take a lot of damage if he loses and to deliver damage if he wins. And he's got solid skills. It always looks a little dramatic. Part of it is that haircut too, because like when he gets hit, like it makes things look more dramatic. Mm-hmm. And I think he'll hang around for a while. I think when you're a Brazilian, and I'm assuming that he still lives in Brazil, that you kind of have more job security than you would if you were an American, because they need guys for Brazil. There's some guys that are only fighting in Brazil. You're never going to see them fight in the States or in Europe unless they really get up that ladder. But, you know, he'll hang around. He'll be on these. They got a lot of Brazilian cards, and they need guys they don't have to fly. I'm sure that goes into account when you're booking these. How many people do you have to pay for flights?
I'm sure it does. So is Joey Beltran just done now?
I don't know. This is the first fight that I can think of that Joey Beltran hasn't put on a show, though. So they'll probably give him more than the one chance. But it is like Joey Beltran, again, he's not a top 15 fighter. And he can put on an exciting fight, and he can take a beating from somebody who's good. But where does he go? He's in more jeopardy losing one fight than I think Maldonado would be in losing 3.
Okay.
I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know. I just don't see, again, who do you have Joey Beltran fight? You have him fighting people like they can have him fight Ryan Jimmo, and they can have him fight, like, make James Tahuna look good, and fight, what's his name, the hippo, the Australian guy, jiu-jitsu. I can't think of his name. Perosh, Anthony Perosh.
Yeah.
He can fight those dudes, you know, whatever. But
it's
I don't
hard
see,
to cut a heavyweight just because there aren't enough of them.
Oh, these are light heavy, though.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, because Beltran,
right.
I think you're just saying he used to be. Yeah, I think this is only the second, maybe his third fight at light heavyweight.
Yeah.
Moving down, I'm going to skip Palhares for a second because I know there'll be enough to say about him, and just hit on the fight of the night. Rafael Assunção against TJ Dillashaw. Dillashaw is the first Team Alpha Male fighter to lose since the Bang Ludwig coming in and taking over as head coach. And what it really looked to me like in this fight is that once TJ showed his hand, when he threw the same combinations a few times and he didn't get a blitzing knockout, it was kind of like, oh shit, this is what I do now. And it seemed like he had a hard time shifting gears to just fighting a tough fight. Like the same combinations coming, and Rafael Assunção, like, I got to tell you, I didn't even realize this guy was on a 5-fight winning streak. That's how under the radar he is in that division.
Yeah, he's a tough dude. I'm a big fan.
I am too, especially after this fight. I mean, that was I wish David was here, because David was telling me he actually had a jiu-jitsu match against Rafael Assunção. David is a small 170, but Rafael Assunció's fighting at 135. That's a huge weight differential. But I guess that's not that uncommon in grappling tournaments when they do the open weights and all that sort of thing. But Rafael Assunção, great win for him over TJ Dillashaw. Got the fight of the night. TJ Dillashaw didn't look bad either, so it's not a terrible loss for him. He's a young dude, so it might teach him a little bit, you know, and I'm sure he's going to come back better. But it was
I like your
fight.
observation there. I like your observation there about him being almost too obsessed with establishing the game plan as opposed to just winning. That is kind of what it looked like happened. It did kind of look like he was trying to establish a rhythm as opposed to just discovering the rhythm of the fight. Does that make sense?
Sure, absolutely. And I think, too, you know, like, one thing that can be scary about the Dwayne Ludwig thing is we see it happen a lot with wrestlers where when they discover their hands that they forget that they're a wrestler.
Yeah.
And the rest of the guys have been very good about mixing it up. And I'm not saying he hasn't done it. I just think that he was concentrating on kickboxing a little too much, and he probably should have maybe done more wrestling. He should have drilled more wrestling for the fight and try to get those positions and use the striking to get there more. But, whatever. Tito Dillashaw's a great fighter, and he's going to do well. He doesn't need my coaching to get there, but that was my observation looking at it.
Or does he just look like a baby, too? He's pretty young,
I think he's young. I'm not sure how old he is, but, I got to say he's 26 or under. He has to be.
Yeah.
He's got plenty of time. He'll get it together. He'll make the right adjustments. That guy will be fighting for a title in his career, for sure.
Yeah. He's 27 years old. I'm just looking at it now.
Yeah, so...
Yep. Young fighter, tough guy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get to now the fight that's stealing all the attention here, the Rousimar Palhares against Mike Pierce. The fight, pretty much what you expected. Every time Palhares got his hands on him, he dropped for a leg lock. Mike Pierce, I thought, was going to be able to shrug him off of him a little bit, and then I realized after watching it, Mike Pierce loves to clinch. So it's probably really hard for him to develop a game plan to circle away and push a guy off of him, And he got caught. It happened once. He got out of the leg lock. It happened a second time. He got caught. Then he tapped a lot. And Palhares really, really cranked that leg. It happened very fast, but not fast enough for Palhares to have hung on as long as he did. He cranked. Mike Pierce tapped. The referee jumped on top of them. Mike Pierce yelled tap several times, and then the lock was released. Mike Pierce is injured. That was a nasty thing. The big question is, and I guess I'll say in case anybody listening doesn't know, that Palhares was suspended by the Brazilian Commission, but he was also fired, and they're saying it's a lifelong ban from the UFC for doing this because it's not the first time. He also held it on Thomas Drawal, I think was the guy's name, that he held it on the first time. Palhares' camp has come out, tried to say that it's just nervous energy. He doesn't mean to hurt people. Other trainers have come out and said he hurts people in the gym all the time. All these sorts of things. The question is a lifetime ban from the UFC too harsh a penalty for Palhares' infraction? I'll let you voice your opinion first.
I'm going to say that I think a lifetime ban is too big of a suspension. I'm not saying that a ban is out of line, but I think a lifetime ban is just too much. He does have a tendency to do this. I don't think it looks malicious. I think he looks like an asshole. I think the guy might be an asshole. And I think when you are that, I think things sort itself out. I think this is a sport where if you get a reputation of hurting people, you're going to get taken out real hard. I do think it kind of sorts itself out in an ugly way. Not boys will be boys. He should face a fine. You're not allowed to hurt people. These are people's careers. But I don't think he's a dirty fighter. I really don't. Do you feel like he is?
Okay. There was one response from someone in his camp. I don't know if it's a manager or if it was someone who should even be speaking for him or who it was. But they were saying how, Palhares is not an aggressive man like that. He's not trying to hurt people. He's a very simple, humble man. And they said the word, he's a very simple man multiple times. And the whole time I'm like, are they trying to say that Palhares is retarded? Is that what they're alluding to here? Are they calling him simple? They're like, this guy doesn't understand what he's doing. But, if that's the case, that's terrible. But this is the guy who not only...
He's a crazy Lenny UFC fighter.
Exactly. But he's not only holding submissions too long in grappling matches and in fights, but he's the same guy that when he tried to get the leg lock on Nate Marquardt and Nate pulled out, he stopped fighting and started to complain to the referee about what he thought was foul play. He got knocked out for it. But it's like, you're worried about this, but you are willing to shred a man's knee to pieces because you didn't realize he was tapping. Well, when as soon as he tapped you, you had that leg lock. You have it. I understand maybe you don't want to release it and the guy say he didn't tap and you got to keep fighting, whatever. But he taps. What about when the referee's body is on top of yours? Don't you think that's the time? And I know this is very quick, whatever, but I have a low tolerance for it. We've talked about it before. Like, I feel like when you're in combat sports and you are too over-aggressive and like in this manner, I think it should be harsh penalties. I've always said when Gilbert Yvel punched the referee in the kickboxing match, it should have been years before the man was able to fight again. Mike Tyson should have never been allowed to box again after biting Evander Holyfield. And Palhares, I'm not saying that he shouldn't ever be able to fight again, but I think that he should be seeing years of suspension for this kind of activity, because you should at least get a harsher penalty for shredding a guy's knee than you do for smoking pot and failing a piss test.
Certainly, 100%. But he is receiving a harsher penalty. He's receiving expulsion from the UFC, and I think that's too much. I think it's a PR nightmare for the UFC. What if he goes on an 8-fight win streak, and all of a sudden he's the man who's too bad for the UFC? You know what I mean? I think it's just I think a 1-year suspension would be appropriate. I feel like it's a little bit catering to, I don't know. I feel like it's overreaction, and I also going to go further than that. I don't think it's going to stick. I'll bet you $1 bill that 2 years from now, if he does well outside of the UFC, that he'll be back in the UFC.
Would you have said the same thing about Paul Daly?
No. And like when you were talking about Yvel, striking a referee is a different thing. Striking after the bell rings is closer, but it's still a different thing. This is rough behavior. It's not the same as a deliberate action, I don't feel.
Okay. I guess for me, it's this particular submission hold that really bothers me. Like, I feel like
this isn't even a choke. This is a career ender. That's a you walk differently now.
Right, and like that's a really dangerous thing. But the biggest shame in all of this is that now we're not going to get to see Rousimar Palhares and how he stacks up against the top 10 welterweights in the world.
Yeah, that is a shame because I really like it. He's a terrific fighter, but you can't have that.
He is. Yeah, you can't, and it's sad. Maybe he gets back to the UFC, but I think they're pretty good on those gambles because Rousimar will probably get signed to, Bellator or World Series of Fighting, or maybe even go to Brazil or go to Japan. He'll land somewhere and get nice paychecks for his name, and he'll win some fights. But how long does it take before? I mean, Alan Belcher whipped his ass. He drilled those leg lock defenses and kicked his ass. Those leg locks didn't work on Dan Henderson. He's already at 185. He ran into some trouble. And does his one-dimensional approach have enough longevity to get him back to the UFC, if that even were an option? I don't know. It's a shame because his time is right here, right now, and it would have been nice to see where he stacks up. It is time now. We're going to go to commercial once again, and when we come back on the other side, we should be talking to UFC's Quinn Mulhern about his attempt to cut to 155 and the injuries that have kept him out of commission for the past few months. So we will be right back, 1 minute, 30 seconds.
This is Real Combat Media Radio. Check us out at realcombatmedia.com. While you're there, check out the Feed the Poor link on the bottom of every article, and you can send a donation if you're interested. That is, once again, on the bottom of every article as well as on the top of the website. If you are an MMA, boxing, or fitness business and interested in sponsoring our website or radio podcast, send us an email. Advertising at realcombatmedia.com. Once again, that is advertising at realcombatmedia.com. Make sure to check out the Real Combat Media MMA and boxing store at the top of the menu at realcombatmedia.com. We carry a collection of products. We have the Cardio Mask, which is excellent for all fighters, endurance athletes, and serious fitness enthusiasts. Once you are in the Real Combat Media store, click on the banner on that page. We also carry Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain is a great and natural product which activates your brain's neurotransmitters and helps you think more clearly, which improves brain function. You can also purchase the world's healthiest plant protein, which comes from hemp. There are many other products online on the online store and click on the On It banner at the Real Combat Media store, and you can purchase Alpha Brain and other health products. Use the discount code Real Combat Media, and you will receive 10% off at the checkout store on the On It. That is ONNIT on the banner at Real Combat Media store. Buckle up. Here we go. Let's get this show started.
All right, welcome back, Real Combat Media MMA Radio. Isaac Lamper and DJ Dangler here. If you would like to jump in on the conversation, call us at 347-324-5998. You can also hit us on Twitter at Real Combat Media and Facebook Real Combat Media. We are scheduled to talk to Quinn Mulhern. We're having a little trouble getting a hold of Quinn at the moment. As soon as we get word from him, we will get that interview going. What we can do right now for you, though, is I want to talk about this Friday night upcoming Bellator card. Bellator 1, I'm not looking at them, I believe it's 104. Bellator 104. Am I correct in that?
I'll pull it up right now. I have a hard time with the Bellator numbering system. You know what I mean? With it being every weekend, some of them get numbers, some of them don't.
Yeah, and this is 104, by the way, but it is weird. It is weird,
Yep.
And sometimes I have a hard time, like, when I'm trying to go back and look at a card, because it will be listed someplace numbered, and it will be listed other places by the main event.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I was talking about, they had Rickles and Bros as listed as the main event on this card, but Patricio Pitbull was the main event. Like, it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of a mess to go over. Like, if you're trying to quickly, like, review a Wikipedia page or something to try to get some results, it's a mess trying to find what you're looking for. And it's weird because they also have an inconsistent schedule, so it's kind of weird. The numbering thing is kind of, I don't know why the UFC still does it either. It's kind of strange. The only other thing I can think of that is consistently numbered other than mixed martial arts events is WrestleManias.
Yeah, which I've got to say, is much more consistent.
much more consistent.
Yeah, I can go back chronologically and tell you almost every one of those main events.
That is not a skill that I would brag about, DJ.
Yeah, no, that's not something I share with a lot of people, with pals.
Except for on the radio for everyone.
Yeah,
I
except for the whole universe now.
Yeah, the only main event from WrestleMania I can tell you is WrestleMania 8 because I was there, and it was a terrible main event. It was Hulk Hogan against Sid Justice.
Oh, that is an awful main event.
Yeah, but it was the epic return of the Ultimate Warrior that I nearly shit my 8-year-old self, or however old I was at the time. It was at Market Square Arena. Yeah, but I'll say this.
I wish they would do stuff like that. I wish they would do stuff with the UFC, like when they had that crappy main event, when they had that awful main event when it was Pro Cop versus Mir.
Yeah,
I would have loved it if then out of nowhere, boom, Wes Sims comes in and kicks Mir in the throat.
I thought you were just going to say the Ultimate Warrior comes out, but Wes Sims, hey, that'd be fine too. Wes Sims probably needs a job right about now, I would assume.
Yeah, he could probably use a $30,000 payday.
Is that how much you get paid for running out and hitting somebody with a chair?
I have to assume that's about what it pays.
All right.
Bellator 104.
On Wheatman. And we talked to Rick Hahn last week, which seems like a really nice guy. And this guy competed at the highest level of judo. He's got a fantastic record in MMA right now. He says he prefers the lightweight, but he's working the welterweight tourney one more time, fighting a former opponent in Brent Weidman. I got to think, as far as this main event goes, I favor Rick Hahn again. I think Rick Hahn's just got a ton of tools. His hands have come a long way. Brent Weidman's really tough, and he's very dynamic himself. I see Rick Hahn with the edge here, but I think it's going to be a very entertaining fight.
I think it'll be great. It sounds counterintuitive, but I have a hard time betting on a guy twice, especially when a guy is eyeing a weight class jump.
Sure.
I just feel like when he's thinking about getting littler, he's not focusing on the fight ahead of him. I don't know if that's. He's definitely a good guy with his head on his shoulders. It's going to be a great fight. But how can you not care less about a fight when you know it's not going to be in the weight class you plan on pushing it?
Right, and I think that is, like, I guess it just depends on it. Excuse me, I got a cough here. I think it depends on the competitor a lot. I think someone like Rick Hahn, who's been competing as long as he has at such high levels, that he's only here for competition. And so a guy like him, maybe it doesn't shake as much, but I can definitely see what you're saying, that, like, if you're one of these guys who your ship has sailed in a weight class and you're rededicating yourself to another, and then you get the call to come fill in, you know, how much energy are you putting in at that point? And I think that's probably a valid question on somebody. I'm going to assume, I spent 20 minutes talking to Rick Hahn, so I think I know him pretty well, all right?
Right.
But, no, I think that he's probably someone who can avoid those sorts of things, because I think a title shot, a guy like him, it just always seems to me, they're so competitive that title shots matter more than weight classes or anything. They're used to getting awards and being, you know, showing that they're the best, no matter what it is. I think that a guy like Rick Hahn, like, you know, if you put him in a hot dog eating contest, he would go at it just as vigorously as he would a judo match.
He's gonna do it. Yeah, he's gonna break his back doing that.
But I do think this is going to be a fantastic fight, and it will determine who moves into the welterweight semifinal. On the opposite side of that bracket, we see Ron Kessler against War Machine to get to the semifinal, or to get to the final. This is the semifinal. I got to admit, I was kind of shitting on War Machine going into that last fight, and David Hollywood Hewitt was defending him, talking about his skills, and I think that I honestly let War Machine's personal life that I shouldn't even know about, but because of the day and age we live in, I do. His personal issues I let overweigh what he can actually do in the cage a little bit, and, you know, I shouldn't have. He came out, he put on a great fight, and I think that he showed that War Machine is one of those guys who probably still should be in the UFC and maybe is a head above 90% of the competition that Bellator has to offer.
He is a great fighter, but I don't think you're out of line being suspicious of him. When a guy's life's a wreck, it's hard to train, it's hard to commit the time, it's hard to do everything that you need to do to get it's hard to operate at peak performance when your life is unstable. And he looks like a guy whose life is frequently unstable.
Right.
And let's hope that he has, I don't know, achieved a level of balance in his life that'll let him be as good of a fighter as he is. He's a great fighter, but I still think he's kind of hard to root for, personally.
Yeah, and if I'm being completely honest, another reason I have a hard time rooting for War Machine is because I've seen him in a porno, and it makes me uncomfortable.
I mean, you can't root for people you've seen naked, just period.
Well, I don't know what, I've got a problem. Let me say this, that if I see that there is a celebrity sex tape or something, I watch it. And it's like, I don't know what it is. I think I watch it with this weird, like, hillbilly mentality of, like, you think you're better than me, and look at you now.
You're gross.
Yeah, I've seen the Tom Sizemore sex tape. You know what I mean? And I saw the War Machine, and I tried to go past it because I knew that it was going to affect me watching him fight later, but I still clicked on it, and I think what it is his wasn't a sex tape either. His was a porno. Like, he was an actor.
Was a full shoot.
And maybe I just don't have very much respect for porn stars. Maybe that's what it comes down to. And I'm like, how together can you be if you're doing porn? But then again, maybe I've got it all wrong. Maybe War Machine's the one who's got things figured out, and he makes a living out of fucking and fighting, and I haven't,
This dude has won, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so kudos to you, War Machine. Just for that, you're my pick to make it to the finals. I think we're going to see Rick Hahn, War Machine in the final, and I know we'll be talking about it before that fight happens. If it does, I got to go with Rick Hahn if it does happen. But that's a fight I want to see, because the problem with guys in Bellator like Rick Hahn who are doing very well there is there's always that question of, like, well, yeah, they're awesome in Bellator, but how good would they be in the UFC? And I almost hate that I say that, because it's that whole, like, people who aren't hardcore fight fans don't realize there's a world outside of the UFC. It's like calling, tissue paper Kleenex, all that sort of thing. I get all that. But the best fighters, for the most part, all are in the UFC. You can say that with more confidence now than you've ever been able to say it in the past. You've got World Series of Fighting and you've got Bellator that are putting together very good cards. They've got good talent, but it's still not as consistent, obviously, as what the UFC has. So if you see Rick Hahn win a welterweight tournament or a lightweight tournament, wherever he's fighting at the particular time, you can't help but say, oh, but I would like to see him fight Stun Gun and see how good he is.
I'm not going to lie to you, I think I haven't heard a thing you said because ever since we started talking about it, I've just been looking for War Machine's sex tape.
That's all right. You can go back and listen to this later and form your opinion on what I was just talking about.
Yeah. No,
don't do it.
No, I think you're right. I would definitely. You think it's
I gave you every warning possible. What? I didn't hear what you said. Now I'm watching War Machine.
Now that it's brought up, yeah. Oh yeah. You're gonna pull for a War Machine, Hahn? It's a good call.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a safe call too, to be honest. Like, I think that you wouldn't have to do much watching to make those two guys your picks for going through. Otherwise, on this card, on the main card, they're showing Peter Graham's going to fight Eric Prindle. Eric Prindle is a giant beast, so, like, I guess it's interesting to watch him fight. Like, the heavyweight division in Bellator, like, they definitely got a good injection from Czech Congo there, but heavyweight's a tough division anyway. It's a very thin division for top talent. Even the top 10 in the UFC kind of just have to fight each other all the time because once you go below the top 10, there's a pretty big gap in talent there. You just don't see huge guys that are that technical. Eric Prindle is an enormous man, but, he usually puts on good fights. It's like watching Godzilla, so it's entertaining.
Yeah,
and then
you Grove fight.
Yeah, exactly. Kendall Grove is also fighting against Joe Vidipo, who I'm not familiar with by name anyway. So I got to think, is this Kendall Grove's first fight in Bellator? I don't remember watching him fight in Bellator before.
He had the one fight, but it wasn't Bellator. It was what was it?
I know
they fought a bunch of guys from England.
I'm pulling him up right now, so I'm going to be able to answer this. You're right. His last fight was Danny Mitchell in it was the British Invasion, U.S. versus UK, GWC. But before that, now I'm looking at I'm surprised that we're seeing him in Bellator at the moment, actually, because that he picked up that win over Danny Mitchell in the first round, but he was on a 3-fight losing streak in there. All of them, I believe, were in Russia. He fought against Mikhail Materia. He fought Jesse Taylor. And he started his losing streak against Mamad Khalidov. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Khalidov, who, if you don't know who this guy is, anybody listening, need to check this dude out. He's a Polish guy, a Polish cat who is just insane. This guy is 27-4. He's only got one decision in his win column. His last loss was in Sengoku Raiden Championship 12 against George Santiago, and he has been rattling off wins. These are his last wins, this Mohamed. Melvin Manhoff, Kendall Grove, Rodney Wallace, Jesse Taylor, Matt Lindland, James Irvin. All by
big wins, all submissions.
Yeah,
and
Mohamed.
Yeah.
This guy is scary. Like, this is somebody, I doubt he's someone we'll ever get an interview with because I'm just going to assume he doesn't speak English.
Right.
But excuse me, I want to talk to somebody who's fought him at least because this guy is a beast and he's getting it going. Excuse me. He's really getting it going. He fights for KSW there in Poland. And, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be one of these things where it's like he's locked into his European, contract and they just kind of feed guys to him. I could see him fighting in Japan, maybe even faster than fighting in the States, but this is somebody who I'm sure every organization has their eye on right now. I want to just for my own sake, I need to count up. After his loss to George Santiago, he had a draw against Sakurai, but then it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7 wins now here by stoppages. Like, this guy is just an absolute beast. We'll be seeing him stateside, hopefully. In the next couple of years, we got to see him, especially because he's a middleweight, and we need big middleweight fighters. We need to see. Yeah, middleweight's always, in my opinion, it's always been like kind of a thin division. Like, it's always been kind of hard to get the ball rolling there. Even if you look back at like the UFC's like legacy of champions in middleweight, it's not nearly as impressive as pretty much any other weight class. You've got
that's also stifled by the fact that Silva held it for so long.
Yeah, true. I mean, that is true. But like, you can probably name at least 5 champions of every other weight class. Can you name 5 middleweight UFC champions?
I'm going to have to stretch, and it's mostly because I can remember Frank Shamrock was the first. I might be able to get it, but it's kind of cheating.
Yeah, that is true.
Have there been 5? Because honestly, who did Rich Franklin was, correct?
Rich Franklin, you said I'm going to go with Frank Shamrock too because you said him. Murillo Bustamante.
I didn't remember that, no.
And, I don't know. Now I'm even questioning if Murillo Bustamante hadn't cut all the way down to 170. I don't think so. I think he was their middleweight champion. But no, it is hard. Like, Evan Tanner, maybe, was he the champion? Did Rich Franklin take it from him, or was it just their, like, that was the fight that made a middleweight champion? I don't know. The fact of the matter is, it's always been one of those divisions where, like I mentioned, heavyweight, where there's a large gap between the top guys and the rest of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
But, it looks better now than it ever has. When a guy like Alan Belcher can't be in the top 10, then your middleweight division's looking pretty good.
Yeah,
the problem there is Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you're definitely right.
Yeah, the problem there in that middleweight division, though, is that, like, you got a lot of Michael Bispings in there who, like, can't seem to get past rank number 4. Like, they are just hanging out right in that middle, and then you end up with, the multiple of the same fight and everything. Chris Weidman's really breathed some life into that division. If he's going to be, I don't think that he can necessarily defend that title against Anderson Silva. We'll see. I mean, hopefully he can. Yeah, I say hopefully. I love Anderson Silva, don't get me wrong, but I say hopefully for the sake of the division, Chris Weidman stays the champion, because then we can start talking about different interesting matchups and not how well can he last or can he do against Anderson Silva, which is what the conversation has been for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of middleweights, I do want to bring up that Yushin Okami, we talked about him last episode a lot, and it appears that he has found his home. World Series of Fighting has signed Yushin Okami, and just in the nick of time, because it sounds like we're going to see Jesse Taylor and Elvis fight for that final spot to fight David Branch for the middleweight title, and I think it would only make sense then when they declare their champion for Yushin Okami to be the first challenger.
I think that's terrific. I think that couldn't really work out much better for him.
Yeah, I mean, because Yushin Okami, I mean, we all know he's not the most thrilling fighter to watch by any means, but he is a damn good fighter.
Yeah, I would say he's comparable to other recent UFC cut John Fitch.
Yeah, and not even in as bad of a position in his recent career as John Fitch was. And John Fitch really wasn't in a terrible position at all. But, I think that's a very comparable. Is it?
I have to say, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. I think better competition will breed a better product out of both UFC and all rival companies.
Sure. And Yushin Okami, he is one of those, it's not like Palhares. He didn't get fired because he's a dick. He got let go because I guess they just felt that he was clogging up the division. That's what I have to assume, that, like, they used the loss as an excuse more than anything to just make some room. because you can probably pay 2 Luke Rockholds what it would cost you to pay Yushin Okami, and Luke Rockhold speaks clear English and is more handsome and probably a more exciting fighter, whether he's winning or losing.
Yep. Easy to get rid of. Yeah, easier to get rid of. All Yushin Okami can really do for the UFC is beat more promising challengers.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it is. We're going to jump in. Are you ready to do this preview for UFC 166?
I am so ready to do this preview for 166.
All right, fantastic.
I love 166.
I'm going to tell you, I hate to sound like a spoiled little kid and complain about the cards that we've been getting, because I'm happy to watch. Like I said, I watched Legacy Fighting Championship on Friday night. I'm going to watch the Fallon Fox fight. It's on my DVR. I watch all the fights you put in front of me. If I can get to them, I will watch them. And, sometimes it takes me longer because if I don't make a pay-per-view, I got to kind of catch up on the internet and find it where I can or whatever. But I love watching the fights. But when you get a card like 166, this is when the UFC flexes and shows you why they are the number one organization in the world. This is a star-studded card, and we're getting fantastic matchups. I'm going to start down here. We get Dustin Pegg is taking on Kyo Horiguchi. Andrew Philly taking on Jeremy Larson. Sarah Kaufman against Jessica Ai. That's a great fight there, and it's really buried in the undercard, surprisingly. TJ Waldberger against Adlan Amagov. Tony Ferguson against Mike Rio. KJ Noons, George Soteropoulos. I love that fight. John Dodson against... Oh, yeah, that's a great one. John Dodson against Darren Montague. Hector Lombard dropping to welterweight to fight Nate Marquardt. C.D. Dalloway against Tim Bosch. Gabriel Gonzaga against Sean Jordan. Gilbert Melendez, Diego Sanchez. Daniel Cormier, Roy Nelson. And we still haven't hit the main event. The heavyweight championship fight, Cain Velasquez Jr. dos Santos 3. Now, this is a hell of a card. This is amazing. Okay, enough hyperbole of building this up, how great it is. This is a good card. Let's start down at the bottom. Bantamweight, Dustin Pegg against Kyo Horiguchi. Dustin Pegg needs a win. He's 3 losses in the UFC. He's only gone 1-4 in the UFC. I'm pretty surprised that he's here, to be honest. And that maybe shows the weight class thing, it's because this is bantamweight. This isn't welterweight where there's so much to go around.
Bantam is a lot like heavy. Yeah,
for sure. His opponent, Horiguchi, this guy's coming from Japan for pretty much it looks like it's the first time. He's a Shudo guy. He's Valley Tudo Japan. He's riding a 5-fight win streak. Decisions, knockouts, submissions, very well-rounded. I got to say, if you're just comparing paper here, it looks like they brought in this dude to see if he can hang in the UFC, and if he can, to send Dustin Pegg packing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think it's a smart move by the UFC. Either, hey, if they're going to bring in a foreign prospect, which is a harder sell in the American market, knock out a guy you're looking to get rid of. So, serves 2 purposes immediately.
Yeah, and I'm not super familiar with his Japanese opponent, so for me, it works perfectly because I'm kind of familiar with Dustin Pegg, and so if this guy comes in and fights him, how he does against him will be a perfect benchmark for me.
Good fight for the guy. First time fighting out of Japan.
Yeah, which hey, that's a tough way to go. It really is, especially because this is in Texas. He's making the trip, to the States to do it. Next up, it appears to be much the same situation. Pardon me. Where we see at featherweight, we've got, coughing a little bit. Jeremy Larson coming off 2 losses in the UFC, and they got him fighting Andre Philly. And Andre Philly is a Team Alpha Male guy who's 12-1 and looking to make his debut in the UFC. This, again, looks like hey, if you can knock this guy out of our roster, you can take his place kind of fight.
And I would bet on this one for sure. I know Alpha Male just got their first loss, but I trust the product.
Sure. Next, we get the women. Jessica Ai taking on Sarah Kaufman. Jessica Ai running really 10 wins, 1 loss, looking great. She just got the win over Karina Dam. She has a win over Zola Frosto-Gurgel in Bellator. Really tough, but we're talking about her opponent here, Sarah Kaufman. Obviously, Sarah Kaufman, former Strikeforce champion. Solid record in her own right, 16 wins, 2 losses. She's fought the best of the best. Her last 2 fights ago, she lost to Ronda Rousey by armbar in the first round. Imagine that. But she's beaten other names that we know. She's beaten Roxanne Modafferi. She's beaten Liz Carmouche. She's beaten Alexis Davis. Like, she's a tough chick. I have to, anytime Sarah Kaufman's in a fight, unless Sarah Kaufman is fighting Ronda Rousey or Miesha Tate, or maybe just because the armbar from Marlos Conan is like really fresh in my mind, I'll throw her in there too. Most of the time, I'm going to give Sarah Kaufman. I'm going to say that she's going to win, especially because when she beat Roxanne Modafferi, it was by a slam. This chick's a beast. Sarah Kaufman's awesome, but this is Jessica Ai's chance to say maybe Sarah Kaufman, ship has sailed and it's time to make some room or whatever. It's going to be a great fight. These women, I hate to beat it to death because it's being said so much, but it's true. The women are impressing to such an amazing degree right now in the UFC. It's really fun to watch. It's like watching the sport start all over again. This is amazing. People want to say, the Stephan Bonner, Forrest Griffin, drew so many eyes to it. That was a shitty fight. It did a lot for the sport. That was a shitty fight. The fights that we're seeing from these women now are on a much higher level. This is these are the good fights. These are, when you get to see fights like Chuck Liddell, Vanderlei Silva, we get to see all that kind of stuff now right here at the beginning because they've already got the best women in one building fighting each other in that weight class. So I don't really know who to pick in this fight. I'm not even going to make a pick, but I think it's going to be a fantastic fight.
It's 100% going to be an exciting fight. I've never seen Sarah Kaufman stop fighting.
Right.
And just point blank. I'm excited to see, talking about how we're in the early stages of women's MMA, I'm excited to see how the longevity on these ladies lasts. Because, they don't sustain the same wear and tear. And even then, UFC fighters fight longer than a lot of professional athletes.
Sure.
So I wonder how, we might be up for a Ronda Rousey empire. Or a Sarah Kaufman legacy. I could see these women definitely being dominant athletes into their 40s, the way Randy Couture was.
Yeah, I think so. It is strange, when we're watching, the tough season right now, pardon me, where you're already seeing just in this tough season, you're seeing people like Tara La Rosa not make it into the house, Shayna Baszler getting taken out in the first round, Roxanne Modafferi getting taken out in the first round. This sport is moving so quickly for women that we're already seeing the Matt Hughes beating Royce Gracie era. The women that were the pioneers, they were only the pioneers. They've been doing it for maybe some of them for 10 years or whatever. Now the young girls are so much better than them. And maybe not the case all the way around because I think Shayna Baszler still can compete with all of them. Roxanne Modafferi, I think, is a better example where the sport's just kind of gone by her. Better athletes are competing now to where a jiu-jitsu chick isn't able to hang as much. But we're seeing it move so quickly. You remember watching, Thiago Alves beat Matt Hughes, and you're like, wait a second. It took 10 years for a Matt Hughes to beat Royce Gracie, and now it's been 2.5, 3 years, and Thiago Alves is destroying Matt Hughes, and we're in a different era now already. It's an interesting thing to see how quickly the evolution comes. And, and then when you look at your dominant champion, Ronda Rousey, her and Gina Carano weren't even fighting in the same timeline. Right. Gina Carano's been retired longer than what Ronda Rousey's been fighting. That's insane to me.
That is crazy.
Getting back on track here, though, We got I have to admit, these are two guys that I'm not as familiar with, Adlan Amagov and T.G. Walderberger. I know that Amagov fought in Strikeforce. I know he has a loss against Robbie Lawler, and I think he's picked up one fight so far in the UFC. And then Walderberger, I can even look down his record. He's been in the UFC for a while. Like, I mean, he really has. He's been fighting since 2010. Like, he's like pretty much just over. What's that?
Was he a tough guy, or am I making that up?
No, he came in. He came in straight from a shark fight to fighting in UFC Fight Night 22 against David Mitchell, and his losses are against Johnny Hendricks and Brian Ebersol. So these are solid losses, but his wins are over guys that you're not super familiar with. So he's kind of stuck in a weird. Although he does have a win over Pat Healy, so I'll give him that. That's a pretty good one, but I don't know where to go with this fight. I don't, unless you know a lot more about them than I do. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them. I will be happy to learn about them. And then
let's do submissions of the night.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get a panelist joining us here. DJ Mike Wurst, our friend from Memphis, is going to be calling in to talk about right as we start getting into this main card here, which is pretty cool. I'm looking at Tony Ferguson against Mike Rio. Tony Ferguson obviously is a tough winner. Mike Rio came from a tough, didn't make it through the tournament, but has come into the UFC and he's done all right. Both guys have stumbled. We're seeing Rio's coming off of a loss. He's got one win, one loss. Neither name is a big one that's going to jump out at you. Tony Ferguson has had more success. He picked up 3 wins over notables, Ramsey Nijim, Aaron Riley, Yves Edwards, and they lost to Michael Johnson. But this is a solid fight, coming in at 155. Like, this is, mid-tier. They're exactly where they should be. They're going to see some airtime, especially if it's a quick fight. They're going to, get some love in there. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a good fight. Wrestler heavy. I got to lean towards Ferguson in this one, probably.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. Yeah, you go with the guy that's had success with the guy that's had possible success.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's just an easy way to go. I'm not, Mike Rio, I'm not really super familiar with yet. Like, this fight is going to teach me the most about Mike Rio, which Mike Rio most likely will be a guest on the show. We were trying to get him on for this, but, I understand he's got the training camp and things like that. It didn't really work out. But after the fight, we'll talk to him and see, seems like a funny guy. Like, the exchange of messages was pretty lively, to say the least. Hang on one second. I'm going to pull Mike in here. Michael Wurst, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right, Mike, thanks for coming on. I'm sitting here. DJ Dangler's on with me. I don't know if you're aware, our co-host David Hollywood Hewlett has a flu bug and was not able to do the show with us here tonight.
Okay.
So we're flying right now, and we are talking about UFC 166. We've been working our way through the undercard. In a couple of minutes here, we're going to be having the interview with Brian Hall, so we'll take a pause in the UFC. We'll talk to Brian Hall, and we'll come back when that is the appropriate time to do so. We just got done talking about Tony Ferguson, Mike Rio, so very quickly, if you have anything that you would like to throw in on that, Mike, go ahead.
No, I really didn't look too much at the undercard. I looked at the major fights, so you can go ahead and go on.
Okay, fantastic. And, I usually, here lately, the undercards have been kind of a glance over for me, but this one just jumped out at me, a lot of really solid fights. The next fight up, like DJ, when we mentioned it, was very excited. KJ Noons against George Sotiropoulos. This is a good fight.
I love watching Sotiropoulos fight. One of my favorite fighters to watch right now.
I agree. And he's in a bad place, man. 3 losses in a row against good fighters, Dennis Seaver, Rafael dos Anjos, Ross Pearson. Decent losses, but losses just the same. KJ Noons is coming off of 3 losses as well, only one of which was in the UFC. It was against Donald Cerrone. He has a loss against Ryan Couture, split decision, which I didn't necessarily agree with that decision, and he has a loss against Josh Thompson. So aside from the Ryan Couture loss, I mean, his are looking pretty good, but I'm looking at KJ Noons' record right now, and I have to tell you, I'm amazed. He's only won 1 fight in his last 6. I would not have guessed that. That is crazy. This is possibly a scary matchup for both of these guys here. They've been pretty cut happy, especially in that lightweight division. I gotta think. Well, you know what? You don't really get striker versus grappler matches anymore. This is about as close in today's MMA as you're going to get to it, because George Sotiropoulos wants to take it to the ground. KJ Noons wants to box. KJ Noons' takedown defense has been exceptional in fights, and George Sotiropoulos has showed some decent boxing, maybe not the best head movement. If we're comparing these guys head to head, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna let you guys voice your opinions, and then I'll make my decision based off of what you say as well. Mike, who do you think, KJ Noons, George Sotiropoulos?
I've got to go with Sotiropoulos. I think I don't know. I watched his last couple of fights, and I think he wasn't bad, but he just wasn't where he needs to be. And you took the words out of my mouth. I think this is going to be a fight to see who stays in the UFC. Whoever loses is out. Yeah,
and I mean, I think that's completely fair to say. Like, the way that they've been cutting guys, I'd say that's very fair. DJ, what do you think? Are you just going Sotiropoulos all the way? Is it because you love him, or are you...
I'm hoping Sotiropoulos. I would love to see a Sotiropoulos win, but I think KJ Noons is terrific at establishing a game plan. I think he mostly gets... I think KJ Noons gets beaten by being outperformed athletically, and I don't think Sotiropoulos is an amazing athlete. I think he's an amazing fighter. I think Noons can prevent any takedown attempt Sotiropoulos is going to make. Like, I think Sotiropoulos needs to get taken down and then choke you out. And KJ Noons, I think he's going to be able to stand up with him. And when Sotiropoulos tries to take him down, he's just going to get sprawled on. I think it'll be I think it'll be a 3-round decision where Noons wins because punches look better than almost takedowns.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's a very logical way to approach it too, because he's going to look. Although I'll say this, man, it depends on how aggressive Sotiropoulos is, because we see fights a lot of times where 15 failed takedowns seem to matter a lot more in a judge's eyes than 15 stuffed takedowns. Diego Sanchez gets really lucky with judges, in my opinion, for that reason. It's kind of the equivalent of the Leonard Garcia winging windmill punches, even though they don't land, look better than just evading a guy's windmill punches.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'd have to say, like, given their styles matched up, basically given KJ Noons' takedown defense, I think it favors him. And his hands are crisp. His hands are good. And Sotiropoulos, as we said, like, I mean, he's on a slide here, and he hasn't looked terrible in his fights, but in his last 3 losses, 2 of them have been knockouts. And, I don't know. I think if you're going on statistics, I got to favor KJ Noons in this. I want to hit, before we get to the interview with Brian the Law Hall, I want to hit on John Dodson against Daryl Montague. This is another, when we're talking about flyweights, I'm not so familiar with a lot of these guys because, I'm looking at Daryl here, and this is his first UFC fight. He has a good record, 13 wins, 2 losses. One of his most recent loss was to Ian McCall in 2011. He's beaten Ulysses Gomez. He's fought guys you've heard of. I'm sure he's tough. At this point, and DJ, I think I might be stealing your line here, but when a division is this young, it's really easy to just pick the guy that you've heard of. Is that fair to do here with John Dodson, you think, DJ?
That's all I can do on this. I don't know anything about guys this little. I really don't. It's hard for me to pick up on them because, I have a rough time. So I typically just go with the guy I know. I am a lousy little fight fan.
I mean, it's a very young division. So if he wasn't on a season of tough, it's kind of hard to know. And until he's fought in the UFC a couple of times, I really can't. I mean, I can look on paper and I can try to, make assumptions. But being 13-2 outside of the UFC, it doesn't mean more to me than John Dodson's 14-6 in the UFC.
And these really little guys are a lot like the great big heavyweights. You don't know what a lot of those wins outside the UFC means. I mean, honestly,
sure.
125, it could be this is a real fighter versus going up against a sort of tough guy who used to wrestle and doesn't know anybody else that little. How does he know if he's tough or not, you know?
Sure. Mike, you did you give any attention to John Dodson, Daryl Montague?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same opinion. I don't really know Daryl's background that well, so I tend to go with experienced guys in the UFC in this fight. So that's why I agree with DJ. I'd have to go with John Dodson on this one.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like it's not the most educated way to get, but it makes sense. Like if you ever have to choose between somebody you haven't heard of and somebody who's been in the UFC hanging with the best that are there. It's easy. Like, who put money on Houston Alexander against Keith Jardine? Nobody.
Yeah.
And except for maybe Houston Alexander's mom, and then he came out and just smoked him. And so it doesn't happen that often. So that is, if you gun to my head, I got to put money down. Of course, I'm going to go with John Dodson because I've seen him fight before, and that weighs more. It has to weigh more. Otherwise, life doesn't make sense. What we're going to do now, guys, we're going to take a little break, do the commercial. We're going to call Brian the Law Hall in. We're going to talk to him on the other side. We will finish talking about UFC 166. But as of right now, go to commercial. We will be back in a few minutes.
This is Real Combat Media Radio. Check us out at realcombatmedia.com. While you're there, check out the Feed the Poor link on the bottom of every article, and you can send a donation if you're interested. That is, once again, on the bottom of every article as well as on the top of the website. If you are an MMA, boxing, or fitness business and interested in sponsoring our website or radio podcast, send us an email. Advertising at realcombatmedia.com. Once again, that is advertising at realcombatmedia.com. Make sure to check out the Real Combat Media MMA and boxing store at the top of the menu at realcombatmedia.com. We carry a collection of products. We have the Cardio Mask, which is excellent for all fighters, endurance athletes, and serious fitness enthusiasts. Once you are in the Real Combat Media store, click on the banner on that page. We also carry Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain is a great and natural product which activates your brain's neurotransmitters and helps you think more clearly, which improves brain function. You can also purchase the world's healthiest plant protein, which comes from hemp. There are many other products online on the online store, and click on the On It banner at the Real Combat Media store, and you can purchase Alpha Brain and other health products. Use the discount code Real Combat Media, and you will receive 10% off at the checkout store on the On It. That is ONNIT on the banner at Real Combat Media store. Buckle up. Here we go. Let's get this show started.
All right, we are back on air, and we are now joined by Memphis-based bantamweight prospect Brian the Law Hall. Brian, thank you for coming on air. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Looking forward to this Friday, this fight coming up. Cutting weight, my weight cut is pretty easy. Today I weigh 142. I just got to make 136, easy cut.
All right. And just so you know, that we have the panel on here, DJ Dingler and Michael Wurst are on here as well with us, guys. Say hello to Brian.
Hello, Brian.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
What's going on? Hey, got a phone full today.
Yeah, exactly. Group conversation going on. But pretty straightforward. I want to ask you first off, just tell us about this fight you have coming here, because it's on XFC, and I know the fight card is going to be broadcast on Access TV. Do you know, is your fight going to make air?
I'm not sure yet. I plan on putting a highlight reel on, so hopefully it makes the air sometime between the main card and hopefully one of the main cards come up short so they can put my fight on, because I'm sure mine's going to be one of the most exciting fights, being that we both bantamweights and our weight class, we just high pace and a lot of action going on. We don't just sit there and make circles around each other. And as far as XFC goes, this is the first time me fighting for this organization. They pretty well known here in the South, especially they based out of Florida, and it's a privilege and honor to be fighting for these guys. I went up to Chicago earlier this year and tried out for their XFC fighter. They get a 5-fight contract, and I went up there and I got in the top 5, but I didn't get the top spot there. So they saw me and they liked what they saw, and they brought me back here this October.
Oh, nice. Yeah, fantastic. Is this fight is in Florida as well?
No, this is going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, about 4 hours away from where I'm from. And they're based out of Florida though, so like that's their home state. Right.
So what can you tell us about I'm not familiar with Kenny Degenhart. What can you tell me about your opponent?
What I know of, he's undefeated, of course. I want to say 4-0, a ground guy, a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. From what I heard and what I see, he likes to be on the ground, and that's what he's his strength at. And of course, I heard about his improved striking, but unless he's been striking for years, I don't just see him out striking me. He's a great fighter, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. Probably it's going to be my best challenge yet.
Yeah, for sure. And so, with doing the research for the show, going over doing some digging around on you. Are you currently a police officer?
Yes, I am. I'm police officer. Been a police officer for 10 years now, and I've been fighting for 6 out of them 10.
Oh, what? I always find it strange. So many police officers and firemen are fighters, and it seems to me that you have a kind of a demanding job. How is it that you guys are able to make this work with schedules and have time to train and to take time off? Do you take time off for a training camp?
Not for a training camp. All the time I really take off is for the fights. For instance, I'm in a vacation, took a couple of vacation days for this fight. So hopefully I get double paid. I get paid for the fight, and then I get paid for taking a day off. So win-win situation.
Yeah, hey, I think you got it figured out then. I guess that's one thing that your job does have is it is a career. You do get vacation time, so if you can arrange things the right way, you can make it work out for you. I wanted to ask you, I'm going to let the other guys have some questions with you too, but one thing I wanted to ask you is, when I looked you up, I found 2 different profiles from 2 different websites. What is your professional record?
I'm currently 5-1. I think both of them have me down for 7-1. They counted some of my amateur fights. So
okay.
For wins. But I'm currently 5-1. Exactly, I think they got my loss even. They got an amateur loss as my pro loss, which one of them got it correct and one of them don't. But I'm 5-1.
Okay. And right now, because as I was saying, I wanted to verify with myself, and I pulled up one of them. You're fighting for XFC now, but it looks like you've fought on some of the bigger promotions. Yeah, I definitely got a chance to fight for Strike Force. I got a chance to fight for Bellator just a year ago, and they actually called me back in July to have another fight, but they wound up the camp that was looking to fight me, they changed their mind after they saw how much experience I had. They said I had too much experience for their guy, so I got denied on that fight. But I suppose I had fought for them about a month ago. So hopefully, I'm a free agent, so I take fights, 365. I'm always ready. XFC even called me 5-week notice. I wasn't original opponent for Kenneth Degenhart, but the other guy pulled out due to personal reasons, so I was willing to come in and take his spot. All right, well, a good break for you then.
Yes, it definitely, that's why I always train, because I'm always ready. When you're on the streets as a police officer, somebody come up to me and try to fight me, I don't say, hell, wait, I need 8 weeks to train for you. I'm always ready.
Yeah, for sure. And now I'm going to hand over, because, Mike, I know you definitely have some questions for Brian here, so I'm going to let you go ahead and get at them.
Yeah, Brian, hey, I've seen I think you posted on Facebook and maybe on Twitter that you consider this probably your most important fight of your career. Tell me or tell everybody why what makes this your most important fight?
I mean, I would say because it's my next fight, I don't look past. A lot of people call me for other fights to attend to, but I pay them no attention until I finish the fight that's in front of me. Plus the fact that that's a big organization. I'm guessing Nashville going to have a great crowd. I'm more likely I'm going to be underdog. I'm going to be booed. I'm going through adversity this fight, and I haven't been through adversity in a while, so I'm looking forward to that, most importantly. And the fact that they have the network, XTV, and bigger promotion, they can see this show, that give me an opportunity to showcase my skills outside of Tennessee, outside the Mid-South. And I'm sure it's a lot of NFL players going to be there Friday because they got the game Sunday, and I'm a big 49ers fan. And that's another reason I might get booed because I'm planning on wearing 49ers gear.
That's a bold move in Tennessee.
Well, considering Tennessee's team this year, it's probably not too bad. But anyway, that's a whole different story. DJ, if you want to ask him any questions about the fight, because I don't want to go into the other part yet, if you want to talk about this fight, so go ahead.
Not so much the fight. I would love to talk. He talked about cutting weight, and we were having a discussion about weight cutting early. But you said you're already in the cut now?
I mean, I really don't cut until like the day before the fight. Most guys, I'll give you an example. I hear he walking around at 168. That's 30 pounds he got to cut within 8-week camp or whatever, 5-week camp, whatever he took, started his camp on. I walk around at the most 145, so the most I will have to cut is 10 pounds. And, I'm really a natural flyweight, but there ain't too many grown men that weighs 125 pounds that are willing to fight me out here. So I got to take what's given, and right now Kenneth was given to me at 135. So I don't really worry about cut weight and all that stuff like everybody else struggling and suffering. I like to eat.
I'd say, Mike, if you got questions, go ahead, man.
Okay, yeah. So Brian, I guess I'll kind of preface this by saying Brian was actually selected to appear on the show, The Ultimate Fighter 18, and unfortunately didn't make it. So, Brian, kind of tell us a little bit about your experience with the Ultimate Fighter 18.
Oh man, that was a great experience. I enjoyed every moment of it. If I was to go back again, I probably wouldn't because I might be broke because I spent a lot of money while I was in Vegas. But as far as the tryouts go, if they was looking for talent, I definitely would have been there. But they was looking for a reality show, and I think I had a personality for it. But at the same time, you don't want to marry a man inside a house with a lot of single women. So they probably look good for their ratings if I'm in there, I'm being the father of the house instead of the wild one. So that probably held me back a little bit. But if they was looking for talent, I definitely was the one that should have made the show. But the guys they picked, they some good guys as far as personality goes and fight it. It's a couple guys that's pretty good, but not all of them are good fighters. And I'm sure the real fans know that and they see it, But that's another story.
So what did you learn while you were there that you think you can apply maybe to your career or to your this fight upcoming and fights ahead, additional fights?
One thing I learned that it's a lot of fighters out there. It's so many talented and well-rounded fighters, and as far as in order for me to try to be the best, I gotta explore outside of Memphis. There's some great guys here, but it's also some great guys other places as well. I realized that even though California fighters and Tennessee fighters and so far apart, but they all similar in styles, and it's not like, for example, we got like 3 UFC fighters out of Tennessee currently, and I think we developing UFC state saying that they saying there's more talent than most people think in Tennessee. We just got to get the same opportunity as those California guys do. If you look at the Ultimate Fighter show, I think like out of 8 guys, 6 of them from California. I mean, how can you have over 350 guys and pick 8 California guys. You know, there's no diversity there, and I feel like that with my experience and my style, I sure would bring diversity to the UFC and other big organizations.
So you feel like the UFC would have been more interested in you if you were a scummier dude?
If I was what? Repeat that.
A scummier dude. You'd have made better television if you were more morally abhorrent.
Yeah, basically, if I came out there with a match and some fire and blow some fire, you know, and maybe with a police outfit that I stripped for them or something, they would have accepted me then. You know,
I'm down.
I came out there with a police suit
with
some music.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I like it.
If I would have stopped stripping,
next time
I
you
think
show
they
up
would
with
have
a big dip of chew in.
with a cawboy hat and a straw.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And talk very country and say I'm from Memphis.
Well, and what I think is funny about this is that, I mean, you obviously are not lacking in the personality. You're not like, you know, like a piece of wood type of guy. But in the experience that, like, DJ and I both have had experience with the reality show Last Comic Standing, and if that gave me any indication on how reality television is put together, you know there's a lot of stuff working behind the scenes, because those guys that are in the house, you also have to think about what camps are those guys from, who are their training partners, who are their managers, who's greasing who. And, like, granted, you do have to fight to get in the house, so there is that safeguard where just because you got the opportunity may not mean you get there, but it definitely helps you with that step in. And I think that's going to be true anytime reality television is mixed into it. It's still a cool opportunity for people, but I'd say that is a more of a young, single man kind of opportunity, any of that stuff where you got to live in the house. Brian, we are going to...
Those are the guys who are watching it. Those are the guys that they want to see.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. You're putting up a mirror. Brian, before we let you get out of here, do you want to go ahead and plug your Twitter or anything for the fans to check you out?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to do that. I'd like to thank my sponsors. First, you know, I'd like to thank God and my family, my friends, teammates, my training partners throughout the community. Mike Wable, that come out and train with me from another school. Game Changer, Fight Swag, Transforming Bodies and Mind, Boxer Girl, Memphis Judo Jiu-Jitsu, XFC for giving me this opportunity to fight. Liquid Ninja energy drink that give me the energy to do this interview.
Sounds like you're practicing for your winter speech.
My teammates, Jeremiah Trotner, Jaleel Willis, Adam Denton, the coaches. I'd like to thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to speak my mind and let everybody know about Brian De La Hall. And they can follow me at Twitter, Brian Hall MMA. Instagram, Brian Hall MMA. YouTube, Brian Hall MMA. What else out there? Facebook, Brian Hall MMA is out there. Go find me.
You got a MySpace or a LinkedIn you want to throw out there?
Yeah. Hey,
Vine.
I'm done with MySpace. I use Instagram videos instead of Vine.
You might even have an AOL account.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being on the show. We'd like to talk to you, you know, maybe a couple weeks after the fight, too, and when you figure out what's up next for you. Love to talk to you again. But just so everyone knows, it is Friday, October 18th, XSC 26 in Nashville. Hopefully we are going to see you on television that night. If not, if it's impressive enough, I'm sure we'll see you the following week on Inside MMA. Brian, thank you very much for coming on, man.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Later, buddy.
Bye.
All right. No, that guy is not lacking in personality. That is not, you know, he could be on television, easy.
But he's definitely onto something. They do want young, crazy fighters to. It makes for better TV. We both remember JT Money, not because he was a great fighter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was controversial. It was rowdy. We all know who Junie Browning is, if you want to really get into that, you know.
That's an even better
I
example,
shouldn't have to know who he is, but I do. We're going to throw to commercial one last time. We're going to come back, and we're going to finish off UFC 166. We might be a little short on time, so here's the plan, guys. We're going to flip around. We're going to start with the main event to make sure that we get it in, and then we may go over time on the live show here, but anybody who wants to listen to afterwards or anybody who downloads the show will be able to listen to us catch up to the middle of the card where we were before. So that's what we're going to do. But first, we go to commercial because that is how bills get paid. We will be back in a minute and 32 seconds.
This is Real Combat Media Radio. Check us out at realcombatmedia.com. While you're there, check out the Feed the Poor link on the bottom of every article, and you can send a donation if you're interested. That is, once again, on the bottom of every article as well as on the top of the website. If you are an MMA, boxing, or fitness business and interested in sponsoring our website or radio podcast, send us an email. Advertising at realcombatmedia.com. Once again, that is advertising at realcombatmedia.com. Make sure to check out the Real Combat Media MMA and boxing store at the top of the menu at realcombatmedia.com. We carry a collection of products. We have the Cardio Mask, which is excellent for all fighters, endurance athletes, and serious fitness enthusiasts. Once you are in the Real Combat Media store, click on the banner on that page. We also carry Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain is a great and natural product which activates your brain's neurotransmitters and helps you think more clearly, which improves brain function. You can also purchase the world's healthiest plant protein, which comes from hemp. There are many other products online on the online store, and click on the On It banner at the Real Combat Media store, and you can purchase Alpha Brain and other health products. Use the discount code Real Combat Media, and you will receive 10% off at the checkout store on the On It. That is ONNIT on the banner at Real Combat Media store. Buckle up. Here we go. Let's get this show started.
All right, we are back. Real Combat Media MMA Radio. Isaac Lanford, Mike Wurst, DJ Dangler here talking to you. You still have a few minutes if you want to hit us. You can do it. We're not going to do the calls because we need to move things along, but you can hit us on Twitter at Real Combat Media. You can hit us on Facebook, Real Combat Media. You can also find us Real Combat Media MMA Radio if you want to get at us directly at some point after the show. Tell us how much you enjoy listening to our voices. But right now we are going to talk about the main event, UFC 166, Heavyweight Championship, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos 3. It's every once in a while you get a fight in a division where there's not a single better fight you can ask for, and not to be unappreciative, but I really would have preferred to see both of these guys fight somebody else before fighting again this quickly. Am I alone in that opinion? Do you guys feel that way, or are you against me on that?
No, I feel the same way.
Yeah,
no,
DJ, what do you think?
I want to see this fight.
Okay.
I want to see this fight very much. I kind of feel right now, I feel like Cain Velasquez, while he is the champion, and officially I think he will remain the champion, getting knocked out so badly by Junior Dos Santos on the huge TV debut, I don't think people look at him as the toughest guy in the UFC right now. I don't think anyone considers him the best champion in the UFC right now, and I don't think they can until he beats Junior Dos Santos again.
Okay, now you go ahead and roll with it, DJ. Tell us what you think is going to happen in this fight.
I think it's going to look a lot like the second. I think it's going to be Cain Velasquez out gas tanking Junior Dos Santos. I think he's going to get hit a couple of times real hard in the first or second, but he's going to just have the gas tank to just keep pushing Junior, and Junior's never going to get the distance to knock him out, and Cain's going to win a decision.
Yeah, all right. Mike, would you agree, or do you have a differing opinion, or same result but different way to get there?
Actually, I agree with him on one point. I think it's going to go the distance, but I think Dos Santos is going to squeak out the win this time. I think he's going to be better prepared, and I think he's going to take care of business this time. I could be crazy, but that's my thought.
I hope you're not, Mike. I'm sorry. I will officially be rooting for Junior Dos Santos, but I'm always going to pick wrestler over boxer, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a smart way to go. I'll say this. This is my – unless, like, I will hold back. Mike, do you want to go further?
No, go ahead. All
right, cool. I agree with what you're saying, DJ. I think that Cain Velasquez has – anytime you have that wrestling, it definitely gives you that edge of, controlling where the fight is, as they always say. But what I want to see – I would be all for Junior Dos Santos if I knew that this time around Junior Dos Santos was going to go into the first round realizing that Cain Velasquez has the ability to box. Because in the last fight, Junior Dos Santos seemed like he was just going to stuff takedowns and box Cain's face in from a distance. Hands at his hips, so worried about the takedown. And when he got the monster punch delivered on him, it just really changed things. And he had little spurts where he came back, but it was one of those where the one punch, they always refer to the Randy Couture Tim Sylvia fight, where it's like the one punch may not have been a knockout, but it really changed the entire fight. And if Junior Dos Santos takes it more seriously, I think that he's got more chance of a finish, which gives him a better chance of winning the fight overall. But Cain Velasquez, the constant pressure, the good boxing, the great wrestling, it's hard to bet against him, except that I've seen Junior Dos Santos knock him out before. So if I'm weighing on my scale, keeps going back and forth, I'd say there's a better chance of Cain Velasquez being able to mix up his game and keep Junior Dos Santos guessing in order to win a decision. And I probably favor that just a little bit more than Junior Dos Santos finding the knockout again on Cain Velasquez. So officially, if I had to pick, I would not put money on this fight, for the record. You could not get me to bet money on this fight. But I'm going to say Cain Velasquez if it was Monopoly money I was betting.
So none of us are betting on a finish?
No, none of us are.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think it's going the distance because I think this is Dos Santos' last opportunity for a while. If he loses this fight, I don't see him getting a shot for at least another year and a half.
Right, because that's kind of my problem, is that this is the third fight these guys have had already. And, man, rushing a trilogy really bothers me. It really does. Because these are the two best guys in the world. Is it one of these things where it's strike while the iron's hot, and in today's society you think that if you don't talk about it and make it happen, everyone forgets about it? Because I think that you could have had each of these guys fight some more fights and be on some big winning streaks, and then it's like, oh, we know they're going to collide at some point. Or are you afraid that Junior Dos Santos is going to fight somebody, I'll just throw a name in there, like a Josh Barnett, and they beat him, and then you're never able to get Junior Dos Santos back to fight Cain Velasquez? I can't imagine that story. Junior Dos Santos is so far above most of the heavyweights in the division. It just kind of surprised me they pushed it along so fast. But I don't know, I guess the sport moves fast. They bring up new stars all the time, In another 3 years, Cain Velasquez can be a footnote, and there's some other guy who's totally dominant in the division.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if it's some of it's just the fighters wanting to settle the score. I know it's not that personal at this level, but if I'm one of the top fighters in the world, guess who I want to fight? The guy that beat me.
Sure, and, Cain Velasquez got kind of embarrassed by Junior Dos Santos. He got clipped, and his train was halted that quickly. And so he wanted that to, get that revenge for that loss. And then for Dos Santos, it was kind of the same thing. His was he got the hell beat out of him by Cain Velasquez. And that he's thinking, well, if it wouldn't have been for me it would be underestimating his striking and taking the devastating punch that scrambled my brain, I never would have been in that position the rest of the fight. But I'll say this, we all picked a decision. If there's a finish, it's going to be Junior Dos Santos finishing Cain Velasquez, not the other way around. No way in hell. Not after the beating that Junior was able to withstand in their last fight. I don't think Cain has the ability to finish Junior Dos Santos.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the heavyweight fight I want to see more.
Yeah, exactly. I know you're chomping at the bit here, DJ. Daniel Cormier, Roy Nelson.
Happy.
And just so we're before I want to just throw this out here now because our official live time is about to end here in 2 minutes. So before it does, and before we're able to move to DJ's favorite fight, I do want to thank everybody for listening, and I want to throw out the Twitter accounts. Mine is at ISAACLANDFERT. DJ, yours is
at DJ Dangler.
And Mike, yours is
at Soccer Guy 39.
All right. So to the people listening to us live, I thank you for doing it. I'm sorry if you really want to hear DJ talk about his favorite fighter, Roy Nelson, that you're not going to be able to do it at the moment. here in a few minutes when we wrap up the show. It will be available for you to listen to at Blog Talk Radio, at realcombatmedia.com. Soon it will be up on Twitter. You can download it on iTunes. You can find it in many, many ways. You just can't have it now. So thank you very much to everybody. And now, guys, let's talk about DJ. I'm making you wait. I'm letting Mike go first. Mike, Roy Nelson, Daniel Cormier, tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, it's actually me and DJ have the same. This is the fight I kind of want to see more, just from the standpoint, because this kind of goes back to when we talked about Daniel Cormier and Frank Mir. Daniel Cormier didn't show me really a whole lot in that fight, other than he can push Frank Mir up against the cage and punch him. That was all he really showed me. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what Big Country can throw at Cormier, because I honestly think that Roy Nelson's going to knock him out.
All right, DJ, go ahead. What do you got to say about Big Country?
I love Big Country, and I would love to see him knock Cormier out, but I think Cormier is the real deal. I think Cormier is going to beat Big Country. I think Daniel Cormier is going to beat everybody you put in front of him until he drops down to 205, and then I think he's going to get beaten by the longer, more athletic John Jones.
I agree with you, DJ, except I think that he has a damn good chance against John Jones, too. I don't want to look past this fight, but I saw Inside MMA last night. He said win or lose, he's at 205 after this fight.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks for Roy Nelson, because if Roy Nelson loses to him, he just lost to a guy who left the division. But, hey, yeah. Roy Nelson, not a lot of smart decisions going on. The Stipe Miocic fight was one of the dumbest choices he could have made at the end of a contract against a really tough guy. And I'll say this. I like Roy Nelson, too. Don't get me wrong before I start talking, because Roy Nelson's very fun to watch. And, DJ, I know that you say all the time, like, especially like we were talking about the Stipe fight, where it's pretty cool to watch a big fat guy who doesn't look like he should be an athlete fighting and beating giant, muscled, chiseled, Superman-looking guys. It's fun. Like, it's enjoyable to see. But Stipe Miocic showed, excuse me, hey, don't let Roy Nelson hit you with a giant overhand right. And you pretty much can win the fight that way. That's what Roy Nelson has, the giant overhand. And also, Daniel Cormier, I know the Frank Mir fight wasn't that impressive, but the Josh Barnett fight that Cormier had was impressive. He threw Josh Barnett up in the air over his head. The problem is you don't want to take Frank Mir down. And Frank Mir is a pretty good striker. What Frank Mir's not good at is grappling against the fence. And so it's not pleasing, but it's effective. And plus, you'd see Cormier get a hold of Mir. At one point, he had him for a body lock from behind, and as soon as Frank Mir touched his wrist, he let go. You don't want to go down submission battles with Frank Mir at all, especially when he outsizes you. I think Cormier is the real deal. I think he is a little undersized at heavyweight, but I think Roy Nelson should be undersized at heavyweight if he wasn't so fat. And it's an appropriate fight. And Nelson's dangerous. Big right hand. We've seen him even pull it out in the third round. No matter how tired he is, he can still drop that bomb. Something that I think is interesting is that punch doesn't seem to be as effective against a shorter man, because it's a winning over-the-shoulder bomb. And so it has a lot further to go to catch Daniel Cormier's. And is it going to catch his chin or the top of his head if it does land? Not to say it couldn't knock him out if it hit him in the forehead, but I think it favors Cormier. I think it may not be a pleasing fight. It might be like the Frank Mir fight, where it's a lot of his wrestling so far beyond anyone else that we're seeing in the UFC's heavyweight division. Yeah. Even undersized, he's going to be able to push Roy Nelson around. And the fact of the matter is, Roy Nelson, as much as we love him, I guess Czech Congo was probably a top 10 when Roy Nelson knocked him out. Otherwise, Roy Nelson has faltered in the top 10. He's only in the top 10 himself by some rankings because he keeps beating the guys outside of the top 10.
Right.
Am I being too hard on Roy Nelson?
No, I'm looking at it. I mean, he beat Mitrione, who's probably not top 10. He beat Dave Herman. The Krokop's definitely not. Struve's not. No, you're probably right.
What do you think, Mike? Is my criticism of Nelson valid?
Yeah. It's almost like I cannot believe I can't think of the dude's name. The guy, the YouTube guy that fought in the UFC like 4
Kimbo
times.
Slice.
Kimbo Slice, yeah. It's kind of like him. He was all hype just because he can knock somebody out with his right hand. But when you got him in a wrestling match or you put him out of his element, he didn't stand a chance. And that's kind of the same way I feel about Roy Nelson is if you put him out of his element, he doesn't have a chance because he just doesn't have the skill.
I think we haven't seen him use his ground game in a long time, and that is weird.
It is weird. And you know what I think the problem is? When you have hands like Roy Nelson does that he's learning to use better, you stick to that, and he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he doesn't have the wrestling to get these big athletic heavyweights to the ground. And so that may be the more than the fact that his right hand's devastating, might be the fact that he doesn't have the option to take guys down. Look at Frank Mir, amazing jiu-jitsu, pretty damn good stand-up, has no way to get the fight to transition from one way to the other than getting hit and falling down and the person following him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But, hey, Roy Nelson can take a beating, and I really do think this might look a lot like Cormier's Frank Mir fight, unfortunately. I think it will be him pushing Roy Nelson around on the cage to a very decisive victory of control, but not thrilling and not the sort of thing that gets people just demanding he gets an immediate title shot at 205. But when he goes to 205, that will probably be better because he can get acclimated and he can fight someone, who's on a pretty good run. If they want to showcase him, they could put him against like a Thiago Silva. They'll probably put him against someone higher in the rankings than that to show him off and see where he's at. I will say this before moving on. John Jones has been very vocal about insulting Daniel Cormier, calling him fat, that he has no stand-up, that he's not even on his radar, that he doesn't matter. If that's real and not just talk, John Jones is being very silly.
Yeah, it's about as silly as Anderson Silva was with Chris Weidman.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just agreeing.
Because it's kind of like that in any sport. If you underestimate your opponent, the next thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking up at the lights saying, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to move down now. I think, I would be amazed if it's not fight of the night. It will probably be the best fight on the card. Gilbert Melendez, Diego Sanchez at lightweight. The fact that this is the third fight down on this card really says a lot. That is going to be intense. I am pulling for Gilbert Melendez so hard in this fight. His Benson Henderson fight was so close, and Diego Sanchez, in my opinion, gets a lot of decisions that he doesn't deserve. And this is going to be a scramble fest. These guys are going to be all over the place. I think Gilbert's more talented. I think that he's got way better boxing. Diego has intensity. That's Diego Sanchez's best thing, and I think Gilbert can hang with him there. The scrambles will tell the difference in this fight. I'm definitely rooting for Gilbert Melendez in this fight. It's going to be one of those like balls of dust, I think, on the ground. Like they're going to be all over the place. It's going to be high energy for 3 rounds, and we're going to really. Diego Sanchez, this might be his last hurrah in the thought of talking about him ever being a title challenger. If he wins it, maybe not. It's going to be a real devastating thing for Gilbert Melendez. He's going to drop down the ranks pretty far. Mike, what do you got? What do you see in this Melendez-Sanchez fight?
Pretty much see it the same way you do. I've got Melendez winning it via decision, 3-round decision. I just think
right.
I think he's going to come out and he's going to, like you said, I think it's going to be a high intensity fight. But I think he's just going to be able to control Diego a little bit more, and hopefully he comes out with a decision.
DJ?
I can't be fair about this. I just hate Diego Sanchez. I want him to lose all the time so much I can't root for him. Yeah,
well, hey, that's an honest breakdown, if nothing else. These last 3, I think we just run through to get this, complete and move on. Gabriel Gonzaga against Sean Jordan. Evidently, Gabriel Gonzaga is still around.
I thought he was done.
He's had a little renaissance. He's back, he's and what's funny is I say that and I looked. He was gone for 1 year, from January 2012 to 2013. He was gone. In 2013, is this serious? He fought Ben Rothwell, Travis Brown he lost to, and he beat Dave Herman, and he's fighting again. This is his 4th fight in 2013. That really surprised me. I don't know if he's been the late replacement guy or what, but he's taking on Sean Jordan, which Sean Jordan, I have to say at first I pretty much ignored this guy, but he's out of Jackson. He's put his 2 wins together. He hasn't really saw great competition yet. He took out LeVar Johnson in Strikeforce, Ollie Thompson, who does not matter in the UFC, lost to Chet Congo, beat Mike Russo, and beat Pat Barry. Pat Barry is probably his best win there. Gabriel Gonzaga is going to be a big, big test jumping up from there, so I'd say Gabriel Gonzaga. And probably he's gone back to some jiu-jitsu roots, so I wouldn't doubt if we see a Gabriel Gonzaga submission here. What do you guys think? DJ, we'll go with you.
Great shape. He looked like he was in such great shape. That last fight. Like, he looked like a younger man than he did on his debut. So, like, yeah, I thought Gonzaga was done. I thought he was one of those weird guys that you were like, well, he was a Brazilian, so I never realized he was 75 years old. You know? But no, he was. He looked really good, and I'm not sold on Sean Jordan yet. He might be great, tough guy, clearly a tough guy, but he's not real big. He seems strong, but his punches aren't crisp. They're just hard. And I think Gonzaga, for as sloppy as he looks, his punches always land where they're supposed to. And I think he's going to knock Sean Jordan out.
All right. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I got to agree with both of you. Again, it's kind of like the John Dodson. I don't know that much about Sean Jordan, but Gabriel Gonzaga, he's got a pretty well decorated background, and if he's anywhere close to being in shape and close to being in form like he used to be, then he destroys Sean Jordan. Yeah,
I think that's a safe thing. The next thing at middleweight, we get CB Dalloway and Tim Boesch, and CB Dalloway's on 2-win streak. Boesch is on a 2-loss streak. It's kind of a strange matchup for that reason, I think. And I think really what this is this, we know CB Dalloway really well. CB Dalloway is going to be hanging out in the middle. He's going to be fighting, winning some, losing some, putting on some pretty good fights. Tim Boesch, we're about to see, is Tim Boesch going to be the same at 185 as he was at 205? Like, not ever cracking the top 10 and just like an entertaining fighter, or can he rebound from these 2 losses and really matter? Because when this guy dropped to middleweight in 2011, which I'm actually surprised it's been that long, he took out Kendall Grove, Nick Ring, both those guys by decision, knocks out Yushin Okami, takes out Hector Lombard when he's just so hyped coming in, but then takes the loss to Costas Philippou and to Mark Munoz, and it is kind of like gray area for him now. So I think this is really a fight that is going to say most about Tim Boesch, and I'm curious to see, too, because that guy can look like a savage at times, but then other times just look like a kind of a middle-of-the-road fighter. Mike, do you have a prediction, or do you have any opinions or feelings about this fight?
Yeah, I like CB Dalloway. I like the way he fights, and like you said, he's just going to stand in the middle of the ring, and he's going to make you come at him, and he's got pretty good takedown defense. So I like CB Dalloway.
Great. DJ?
If they were both coming off of wins, I would pick CB Dalloway, but I think Boesch is going to be fighting for his career, and I think he's going to win because of it.
All right. And that's a pretty fair assessment, because he does seem like the type of guy who a fire under his ass can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And we come to kind of an odd place on the card here, because it's where we will complete our predictions, but it is dead center of the actual event. It's Hector Lombard finally dropping to 170, which he probably should have done a long time ago, but why do you do it if you keep beating everyone they put in front of you? And he's taking on Nate Marquardt, who has also tried to see a resurgence in his career at 170 and has not come out with a really great showing for it. He basically beat Tyron Woodley in his first time at 170. Let's not forget, Nate Marquardt left the UFC because he missed weight for a main event, and they fired him. Or, no, wait, it was he pulled out.
That's positive for a bunch of, he had real high testosterone.
Okay, because I was like, don't forget, and evidently I had. So, okay, yeah, so they got rid of him. He fights Tyron Woodley, and he beats him, and then he loses to Tarek Saffiedine. He comes to the UFC, and he gets knocked out by Jake Ellenberger. and now they got him fighting against, Hector Lombard. And they're kind of like, I hate to say this because these guys are both great fighters, but they're kind of fighting to see who is the bigger hype train that doesn't matter. Because Hector Lombard goes on this ridiculous 20-fight win streak, comes to UFC, loses to Tim Boesch by split decision, beats Palhares by punch, loses to Okami by split decision. So he's dropping a weight class. I mean, those are split decisions against very good fighters at 185. So you think maybe at 170 is going to be guys he matches up with a little bit better. Nate Marquardt will be a good test for him. Nate Marquardt's probably getting cut loose if he loses this fight. Hector Lombard maybe as well, because I'm guessing he may cost a good chunk of money since he came in so hyped up. But I'm going with Hector Lombard. I think this guy really does have it. His motivation seems questionable at times, but Nate Marquardt's been so up and down. Pretty much ever since he got really worked by Chael Sonnen, he's never really had a really strong role going. So I'm going Hector Lombard, and I'm calling it by possibly a knockout given Marquardt's recent record. DJ, I'll let you go first to finish off here.
I think I'm going to go Marquardt just because I feel like Lombard's getting old. It really is that simple. I have a hard time for the way he fights, because he's not a gritty Randy Couture wrestle take you down type fighter. You know what I mean? This is that takes more damage. He's 35. I know Marquardt's an old guy too. I think he's probably 33 or 34. But I don't know. I think Lombard's best days are behind him. I feel like I saw him losing steps even when he was still winning fights.
Yeah.
And now I don't think he can keep up.
Okay, Mike, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I kind of listened to both your assessments. I don't know. I'm kind of undecided. I think it could really go either way.
This would be a hard one to bet on.
Yeah, I think really either guy, like you said, I think either guy is fighting for to stay in the UFC again, kind of like Soteropoulos and Noon. So I don't know. I'll go with Nate Marquardt.
Yeah. Is it also are we kind of picking just the fighter we'd prefer to see in the UFC longer? Is that because I know that's true with my prediction?
No, I'm just.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm just going based off of who in my gut who I think will win.
Okay.
It's not about who I would rather see in the UFC. It's just my gut or my opinion on who I think is going to win.
Okay, DJ, are you as biased as me, or are you on Mike's page?
No, I'm not that biased. I don't dislike either one of these guys, or particularly like both of them. I think Marquardt is. I think he still feels like he has more to prove, possibly.
Yeah.
But but that's it. This would be cool. This is one I couldn't bet on. I could flip a coin on where I'd put money.
Yeah. Okay, I kind of agree there. I do think it's an interesting fight. But anyway, it goes. 166 is an amazing fight card. I can't really hype that one enough. It's a good one, best we've seen in a while. I'm definitely going to be trying my best. I think I might have Saturday night free. I might actually get to see this fight when it happens, which is kind of rare. But yeah, that's UFC 166. I want to say thank you to Brian the Law Hall for being on the show. So Friday night, if you have Access TV, make sure to watch XFC 26. See if you can catch a glimpse of the policeman there fighting. And we'll try to get with Quinn Mulhern, find out what happened with him. Maybe the same injury that took him out of his fights with Ryan Couture and Thiago Tavares got him here tonight too. Maybe the weight cut for the interview might have been too much. He's a tall guy, so we'll figure out what happened. We'll get him on here, and we'll have next episode. We'll have our co-host David Hollywood Hewlett back as well, hopefully recovered from his Asian flu. So Mike, DJ, thanks guys. We'll talk to everybody later. Good night.
Thanks so much.
Good night.